Mount up! We're coming!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and I am back from Minnesota Vikings joint practices. The first of 2 days of joint practices with the Vikings and the New England Patriots, and I gotta tell you, it was a beautiful day for football. That was the number one takeaway for today. I'm gonna get to all the different things that we saw from JJ McCarthy, from the offensive line, the weapons, the receivers. But I'm going to tell you the truth. Little PSA here at the beginning, or I'm just going to admit to you that I only have one pair of eyes and I can only be in one spot for the entire practice. So I watched JJ McCarthy. I watched every drop back. I watched every throw, every scramble, every handoff. But I was not on the other field watching the Patriots offense versus the Vikings defense. I asked around after practice and I read some other reports of what other reporters said, but can't be in two places at one time. So I was watching all of JJ McCarthy, all of the offense, and that's where most of my focus is going to be. And of course, I mean, a major part of that too is I think that we feel pretty good about where the Minnesota Vikings defense is at. And one funny moment about the defense. So I was standing there watching the offense, and then Chad Graff, who used to cover the Vikings and now covers the Patriots, he came over, said, "How's it going over here?" And I said, "How's it going over there?" And he said, that rookie Will Campbell, he is getting demolished by Jonathan Grenard. I said, "Welcome to Vikings camp." So it sounds like the Vikings defensive line gave the Patriots a pretty tough time on the offensive side. But otherwise, it sounds like also that Drake May had some really impressive plays. I would expect no less. But you want the JJ McCarthy breakdown. That's what I am here to give you. So I'm going to take you through the entire practice, go through a little bit of sound, talk with TJ Hawkinson in a scrum after practice, and a couple other players that I can talk about as well. Who stood out? Who looked good? What were the ups and downs of practice? I'm going to dive right into it, get all the way through it, and then we've got some KOC, we've got some Hawkinson, and yes, I took some video out there as well of actually kind of some of the good stuff with receivers running one-on-ones versus cornerbacks. Always pretty fun to see. So here's how the practice began. The Vikings got out there with the offense versus the Patriots defense in a 7-on-7 situation. And I thought that JJ McCarthy, through his first 6 passes, looked the best that he has looked all summer long through his first 6 passes. He had, and I saw the Vikings tweeted this out, so you can go look at it if you want to. He had a beautiful timing throw to Jordan Addison, who in my mind was one of the bigger winners of today. Him and TJ Hawkinson both had great days, but he starts right out with a 7-on-7 throw, drops back, lets it go. It's got touch on the football as Addison's breaking out. Addison smokes his guy, perfect catch along the sideline, and kind of looking around like, okay, JJ McCarthy is cooking. And he hit a couple of different downfield passes, not 50 yards downfield, but more like 10, 20 yards downfield in that intermediate area, and even had something that stuck out a little bit, a tight window throw to Jayshon Jones. Again, if you're not familiar with Jayshon Jones, the undrafted free agent from Maryland last year, started to work in a little bit the other day into the first team, and then was out there for a handful of reps. Still Lucky Jackson getting more of those reps, but Jayshon Jones maybe has shown the coaches something with Rondale Moore out. It seems like he has moved up into the wide receiver 4 if Addison is 1, because Justin Jefferson was not practicing, so let's get that out of the way too. Jefferson, I didn't expect him to practice after the fact that he didn't practice the other day when they were preparing for this. So no Jefferson. So that means Addison is number 1, Naylor's number 2, Lucky Jackson 3. And it seems Jayshon Jones is the number 4 wide receiver. And he's a guy that has impressed at times going back to last year. So there was a nice tight window throw to Jayshon Jones. After the touch pass to Addison, I noticed that McCown came over, gave him a slap on the helmet, like great throw. So he starts out really well. And then the 7th pass. So he goes 6 for 6, bang, bang, bang. Like, whoa, okay, he's on fire right off the start. And the 7th pass was very emblematic of what JJ McCarthy's training camp has been so far, which was he dropped back, he got to his first read, went to his second read. He identified Jalen Naylor streaking across the middle of the field wide open. And I think he tried to put it over a linebacker, and it went over everyone and ended up as an interception. And this is the process with JJ McCarthy. And I wrote about it today over at purpleinsider.football. I had a long conversation with Kurt Warner about layering the football. And I think with JJ McCarthy, the accuracy part, the consistency on the touch of the football, it's been sometimes awesome and sometimes, whoa, that ball flew way where it was not supposed to. And you could almost see him trying to slow down a little bit as he was going to throw it. Like, I got to put this touch on it just right. And wee over the top and ends up as an interception. So that kind of took the wind out of the sails a little bit for JJ McCarthy. But as the practice went along, of course, they got into the 11 on 11s. We did see Thayer Thomas and Ty Felton mix in a little bit. Not a lot, but every once in a while for a couple of reps. And he got going in 11 on 11s pretty well. I will say that the Patriots defensive line is really good. I think it's going to win them some games this year because they were in the backfield a lot and they were causing a lot of pressure. Now, of course, your next question is, should we be concerned about the Vikings offensive line? And my answer is I'm not sure yet because in Cleveland, it kind of went the same way last year because Cleveland had a great D-line in the joint practices. In Tennessee a couple years ago, or against Tennessee, it went the same way. San Francisco, it went the same way. So I wonder if with these joint practices, a lot of times the defenses are ahead when it comes to the defensive lines. I'm not sure exactly why, but maybe when it comes to picking up some of the pressures or they're not game planning for these guys, that could be another part of it. Like Christian Darrisaw said after practice, hey, I mean, I'm not really preparing for the guy that I'm going to face. So I'm kind of just trying to out there figure it out on the fly. That's quite a bit different from when he plays whoever it is this year, where he'll be scouting and studying and all the different details. So that might be a little part of it, but they were causing a lot of pressure. I think it's also because they're good, causing a decent amount of pressure. But I thought that McCarthy handled it mostly very well today. He found Jordan Mason a couple of times. Mason made a really good catch coming across the middle where the throw was a little bit behind him, and also seemed to go to TJ Hockenson a lot. So the second 11 on 11s where they were doing like a second down and 10 type of drill, he found TJ Hockenson on a really nice pass on that one, kind of over the middle. And they also had what I thought was the play of the day today from anybody, and that was coming from Donovan Jackson. This was the one time where the offense got super pumped. Everybody was jumping around, high-fiving. So something that we've talked about a lot on the show as a frustration of mine over the last couple of years is the screen game. And a major part, I believe, of the Vikings' screen game struggles has been the fact that they just haven't had offensive linemen to get out there and be an impact player on the screen. I mean, we saw last year Ed Ingram missed a couple of blocks. Reisner's not a guy who could get out there. Brandel is not a guy who could get out there. So now with Donovan Jackson, we got to see the full, whoa, this guy is a first round pick on this screenplay. So they ran a screen. It was actually to the right side to Aaron Jones. And Donovan Jackson, I think, was coming from the left side and then like pulling on the screen. I think that's what happened. It happened very fast. So he's coming out, and all of a sudden, Donovan Jackson just puts his head down and books it. And Aaron Jones kind of slows up a little to give him some space. And he just, like a bowling ball hitting bowling pins, demolished two New England Patriots defensive backs. I mean, just comical, like something out of a cartoon. Bam, bam, just knocked two guys on their behinds, and they're looking around like, what just hit me? What just hit you was Donovan Jackson. And after, when we talked to TJ Hawkinson, it was the first thing he was talking about was, man, that got us all pumped up. And then we had a very successful couple of plays there. And Jackson said, he's not used to running like 40 yards, then coming back and running a bunch of plays. But I think that this play was a good indicator of what their what their screen game can be. And especially against a defense that has a lot of talent here, but having that mobility and that amount of athletic talent of Donovan Jackson, that can make a true impact in a screen game. So that, I mean, I think that was one of the plays of the day, hands down. And Christian Darrisaw was talking about it after. I mean, everybody enjoyed that one. And, they came back, and right after that, JJ McCarthy hit a 15-yard pass to Jalen Nailor. I think that his chemistry with his receivers was on display today, where it was a number of completions to Hawkinson. Now, if you're asking me for what the stats were for today, I was trying to keep track. I'm not always super confident in my completion percentages. I don't want to get it wrong, but I had about a 70% completion percentage, and he threw somewhere in the range of 30 passes. So he was throwing a lot today and had a lot of completions for sure. So, when it came to getting back, into the swing of things after the screenplay, he hits another pass to Jalen Nailor, had a couple to him today. Nailor did drop one across the middle that was a little on the low side, but largely an accurate day for JJ McCarthy. But where I felt like he was at his absolute best was in the 2-minute drill. And this is where McCarthy really stood out to me last year, was when he got an opportunity to run the 2-minute drill. He seems to take an extra level of dialed in, focused, command, whatever it might be. This, I think, is one of his best assets as a quarterback, is when they pull out that 2-minute drill, when it's time to go, nobody's questioning where they're supposed to be lined up, what the cadence is, what the snap count is, and McCarthy's in total control. So McCarthy in this 2-minute drill steps up, hits a throw to Nailor, rips one to Addison, finds Hawkinson, like they're moving. And then later on in the drive, he has to scramble, gets about 10 yards, and the scrambling is just becoming a thing that he's doing really well. And if you think about it, in the regular season, would you rather have him take a risk or push it downfield or just use his legs? And you saw it in the preseason game, 4th and 4, they get some rush, it's going to happen, takes off and makes a play. But now it almost feels like since Kevin O'Connell talked to him after one bad attempt to Aaron Jones in the middle of training camp, they had a conversation about this. I think O'Connell was saying to him, and this is a guess, I'm sort of paraphrasing a little bit, but if it's not there, just go. Like, make sure we get yards, make sure we keep the drive on track. So he did that. And then they had what was, a simulated, obviously, 4th down. And he hit a 15 yard pass to Jordan Addison that set them up for a field goal. Like, the situation was they're down by 3 and you got to drive down and get at least a field goal. So he hits on a 4th down, completes it to Addison, who again just had a phenomenal day. And Jordan Addison took over the role today of Justin Jefferson, just smoking the New England Patriots secondary. I thought he was terrific. But this drive, having it hit some stumbling blocks, I think there was a penalty mixed in, and then to complete a pass on 4th down and get that conversion and set it up. Like, that's the stuff that you're looking for JJ McCarthy. And the way that Kevin O'Connell's framed it, I'll play it a little later, is kind of these checkpoints. And this was a bit of a checkpoint just for me of, all right, it's the joint practice. This is what we've talked about this whole time. And the biggest part of these joint practices is the 2-minute drill and the situational stuff. And Mike Vrabel mentioned to us today that tomorrow is the vaunted red zone, where McCarthy has had a lot of his struggles in training camp. But this was a major checkbox for me of, it wasn't the most flawless 2-minute drive I've ever seen. There was some mistakes mixed in, but McCarthy ends up getting the job done with a conversion to Jordan Addison. And it seems to me like he's really finding the number one wide receiver, which ultimately will be Justin Jefferson. I would expect that it's going to be, Justin Jefferson starting next week is when he'll probably get back based on what's going on. That would at least be my guess. So I thought it was a great drive on the 2-minute drill. Later they had, I think, one more 11 on 11s after that, and nothing really stood out except for he has had a couple plays where he's doing different stuff with his arm angle. Now, there was only maybe one today, but he had a conversion where I think you're just seeing the pocket presence of JJ McCarthy. And again, like the reasons that he was drafted are on a lot of things that are not just height and how far you could throw the football related. Getting rid of the football on time went okay today, if not decent. Pocket presence, he was under a lot of pressure. He did not seem rattled by that pressure. I think I had him sacked maybe 2 times. There was one or two throws in 7-on-7s that came out a little slower than you would like to, or he had to scramble and throw away. But it was way more good than bad today for JJ McCarthy. And this is also adjusting for over the years what we've seen from joint practices. And it's never, I haven't seen any quarterback in a joint practice just complete every single pass, look flawless, not make any mistakes. Like they're still growing in this offense, but I thought it was a good day. And I walked around and I asked different people, including a friend of mine, Doug Kide, who works for the Boston Globe. He was standing next to me. I kind of asked him, "What do you think?" Dane Mizutani, just other people saying like, "What do you think of McCarthy's day?" And most of the reviews were B or B plus, and that's where I would go to. I would lean toward B plus because he had a nice throw that was off balance that he made a play. He converted on the situational drill. There was maybe a little debate on a deep ball that he had, whether it was underthrown or not, but he had a deep ball where he gave Jordan Addison a chance to make a play by throwing it 40, 50 yards in the air, and he was right there in range that he probably would have caught it if it wasn't knocked away by the defender. I don't think it was flawless. I also don't think 50-yard balls that you're asking the receiver to track it and go get it, I don't think that they have to be perfect, and JJ probably won't be. But the intermediate passing game, getting rid of the football, not taking a ton of sacks today, dealing with the pressure, scrambling a little, making some plays out of structure, not too many, but one or two. Overall, a very solid day, in my opinion, for JJ McCarthy. So I'll be interested to see what other people thought of it that, write up every practice like I do and analyze every practice like I do. I'll be very interested to see, but that was my takeaway. I thought there were some moments where they're going to say, all right, they've got to figure out how to deal with this blitz or this pressure as an offensive line. I also think the line is really coming together, but it's only in the early process. Like Christian Darrisaw got beat on a play, but I mean, come on, he's practicing for the basically the first time against somebody else. That was another huge note. So let me go through my other notes today. Number one is that Darrisaw was out there quite a bit, and the steps just keep going forward one at a time for Christian Darrisaw, where he got out there 11 on 11s before the start of August. That was big. He's been mixing in. He's been improving in terms of his health. And then to actually practice against another team on August 13th, like that's really good news for the Vikings. Still, I'm not going to say that I'm going to guarantee this, that, or the other thing when it comes to Darrisaw first week, second week, whatever it might be. But I will say it's big for him to be back in these practices. My thought was if he didn't participate in these practices, then week one was off the table. At least this keeps week one on the table. And we had a conversation with Darrisaw after, and he's not trying to make any promises about his recovery, but he was very, very positive about getting back out there today. So that was nice to hear from him because they need him. And he's just a really nice human being. So, his getting a chance to talk to him about his recovery and him, having a big smile on his face, like that's a good vibe for this team, for one of their most important players. We did not see Andrew Van Ginkel or Harrison Smith or CJ Ham today. So clearly they didn't use any of the fullback types of personnel groupings. I did notice, though, a lot of two tight end. And that's my expectation to the point where you guys are starting to make fun of me for talking about Josh Oliver. Well, guess what? I got an article on the way, too, about Josh Oliver that I'm working on maybe for Monday. But, they were using that a lot. And Lucky Jackson mixing in, he got the most snaps. And that looks like that's the order of things right now, is that their base unit with the two tight ends is probably going to be what they use the most in the first couple weeks. And then Lucky Jackson, There is maybe a new option on the table that people are starting to talk about for wide receiver, but we haven't seen signs that they're going out to get somebody else as of this moment at the wide receiver position. And I'll bring you Kevin O'Connell's thought on that in a moment. Donovan Jackson looked to me like I would call it a competitive day from Donovan Jackson. I tried to focus in on Donovan Jackson on a number of plays. Now, my eyes, again, I've only got two of them and I can't split them. There are people who can do that, but I'm not one of them. So mostly I'm watching McCarthy. And when someone arrives at McCarthy, I'm trying to reverse engineer who it might have been or how they got there, which is why it's hard to analyze offensive line play from the sideline. But I tried to focus in. And again, this is a good D line. I noticed Kairos Tonga a lot out there, former Viking. And I thought Jackson, even on some reps where he was facing somebody pretty good or there was a little bit of an edge on him, I thought he did a really good job of battling. Thought they looked good in the run game. They broke out a couple of runs solidly. And then, the screenplay as well. Talk about confidence building days for Donovan Jackson. I thought this was one of them. And when we talked to him after, he had a big smile on his face. Also, I thought the offensive guys really the body language after practice was it seemed like they felt like things went pretty good to them. And Donovan Jackson seemed happy with his performance. It looked to me like he was battling pretty well, even if the Patriots did create a good amount of pressure against the Vikings today. So Donovan Jackson, I think he needed a step forward after maybe a little bit of a rocky preseason debut. And we're all trying to figure out kind of where he's at. But Christian Darrisaw was saying, like, it's really hard to make that transition from college to the NFL, and his confidence is growing. And I think I saw that today with Donovan Jackson. Another thing that was kind of interesting to me, Kevin Seifert tweeted, and I took note of this, but I didn't count them, that there was somewhere in the ballpark of 10 flags against the Patriots. I wonder if part of the conversation with KOC and the Patriots was like, be physical. Be physical against these wide receivers because Naylor and Addison and Lucky Jackson are not exactly Kelvin Johnson when it comes to their size. So you want to see them be able to fight through the contact. Also, Carlton Davis is a really physical corner. He is enormous. He was standing kind of closest to me on the sideline. I was like, oh my gosh, that guy is huge. So there was a lot of grabbing, a lot of physical play, and I thought the receivers did a good job of fighting through it, and also McCarthy staying on time with those wide receivers. I know that you all want to know, how did Will Reichard look? Well, let me tell you, Will Reichard looked really, really good. Will Reichard kicked the ball great. He went 4 for 4, and he also made that other one in the 2-minute drill. So technically, I think it was 5 for 5 for Will Reichard. Back on track. He had that one bad practice, and maybe that was because he was thrown off because someone else was holding or the wind or whatever it might have been. But since that one bad practice, Will Reichard has not missed in any practice or in the preseason game. He's back on track, folks. I was making sure that I was keeping track of the kicking. And as far as Sam Howell and the second team, I guess I would describe it as okay. It was okay. They failed on the 2-minute drive, didn't succeed. He had a throw that was a little low and a little behind. I would not walk away saying, wow, Sam Howell, it's all resolved. But he had a number of completions as well throughout the day. And I think that he's settled into looking like a backup quarterback. Previously, I would have said he looks like a UFL quarterback at the beginning of the summer, but now he's looked much more like I'd expect from QB2. And this practice was reflective of that. And our absolute must, the Max Brosmer throw of the day. Max Brosmer just continues to do it out there, guys. He, for the second straight practice, delivered on a deep bomb 40, 50 yards down the field to Tim Jones, special teamer, third team wide receiver. But Brosmer got a couple of reps in there, and it may have even been more than Brett Rippon. I didn't rep count with Max Brosmer, or maybe it was about the same. But drop back, they picked up a pressure. He let it loose and dropped it right in the bucket over the shoulder of Tim Jones. And so, Max Brosmer just continues to have some really, really good practices, and he did again today. Even though a small sample, and the preseason game will be a much better indicator for him on Saturday. But the fact that he's even getting a couple of reps in a joint practice like this, I think that we're all kind of seeing the same thing with Max Brosmer. So there is your kind of complete update on what happened on the offensive side. We will definitely talk to Dane Mizutani tomorrow. We'll see his takes, and we'll get a little bit, maybe a little bit more look at the defense tomorrow. But I really, really want to see the red zone stuff, the 2-minute stuff from JJ McCarthy, because anything that happens here, and one of the guys that I wanted to see was not practicing today. That was Levi Drake Rodriguez. Anything I wanted to see was really based on maybe the secondary, the corners. How does Isaiah Rodgers look? But I don't feel like I need to know a ton about the Vikings defense. I mean, normally in the past in these joint practices, what I've been doing is I'll kind of go from one to the other, but that was because I felt really good about what Sam Darnold was at that point. I felt pretty good about what Kirk Cousins was and just knew who he was as a quarterback. So I had much more mobility around the practice, but in a situation such as this, I felt much more compelled to watch JJ McCarthy every rep. So just from what I heard, it sounded like the Vikings defensive line was doing the same stuff that they've been doing all summer long, which is just getting after it. So let me get you a couple of sound bites here from Kevin O'Connell. So the news yesterday was that Brian Asamoah was cut and Rondale Moore was placed on injured reserve. And so Kevin O'Connell talked about the wide receiver and punt returner situation now with Rondale Moore on injured reserve. So here's O'Connell.
Kevin, just where are you at with receiver depth in the punt return spot right now?
Yeah, we're going to.
Anyway, what Kevin O'Connell was saying was just that, there's a real competition there with those wide receivers, and that it's open. The door is open, and it's going to matter a lot to the decision of what they're going to do. And this is paraphrasing Kevin O'Connell, with what happens going forward into the preseason game and even maybe into the third preseason game. So it feels like what the Vikings are doing here is what they have often done with the wide receiver spot. It's that they are leaving the door open for somebody to come up and win the job. Like, that's what they're looking to do, is just somebody come get it. Somebody come win the job. And then they'll give it to them. And if not, then if they don't feel comfortable with Lucky Jackson, with Jayshon Jones, with Thayer Thomas, if they need to use him, if they don't feel comfortable with that situation, then maybe they will look elsewhere. And I'll throw out one idea that was bounced around today at practice, which is just Odell Beckham Jr. It sounded like from some couple of social media posts that maybe the Steelers, as they continue to try to build the oldest team in football, but we will see on that. I don't think the Vikings would be interested in Odell Beckham, but once upon a time, Kevin O'Connell earned himself a Super Bowl ring with Odell Beckham at wide receiver. So yeah, DB, I agree. Just get somebody who can make a fair catch. That's probably a good idea. So let's get to the FanDuel question of the day. And then we will get to your questions about today's joint practice and whatever else is on your mind Vikings related. So FanDuel question of the day. This might be a little bit of a funny one, but I noticed this and I laughed out loud a little bit, which is that the Vikings are plus 1,500 to kick a field goal in every regular season game. I don't think that's very possible. Has that ever happened before? I would have to look that up. But it was one of those funny bets that you can make, plus 1,500 to make a field goal in every game. So let me spin this to a Vikings question, which is your confidence from 1 to 10 that Will Reichard will be a good kicker for the Vikings this year. Confidence from 1 to 10. I doubt he's going to kick a field goal every single game. But what is your confidence level in him now that I've told you that he is recovered from any sort of issue that happened a couple of practices ago, and he is back to making 100% of his practice kicks? So give me a 1 to 10 confidence in Will Reichard. And I want to remind you guys about another one of our sponsors, which is ZipRecruiter. I know that a lot of you guys own your own business, or you're in a management position where you have to hire people and it can be a headache and you have to sort through all sorts of resumes that you didn't want or don't need. and sometimes overlook the best candidates. Well, that will not happen with ZipRecruiter. It's got all the things that you need for hiring. It will get you amazing candidates and fast. You want to try it out for free? Go to ziprecruiter.com/audio. It is just that easy. You could try their smart technology that finds great candidates for you quickly, or use the invite to apply button where you can reach out to your favorite candidates. So ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find you what you're looking for, that needle in a haystack great candidate. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate in the first day. Try it for free. ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. So let's get into your questions. Let's see. Well, the first question is, how did it go today? And I think there's a longer breakdown about that. Will says, seems like McCarthy's errors seem to be stemming from accuracy rather than making the right reads. In your opinion, which one is harder to coach up? I would mostly agree with that. I don't know the reads, though. That's the only reason that I can't 100% confidently agree with that, is that, they don't tell me before the play where the football was supposed to go. But based on what I'm seeing, I think that the ball comes out quickly. I think it comes out on time pretty well. And I think that he's usually throwing it to receivers who are breaking open. That what I don't see a lot of is JJ McCarthy throwing the ball to wide receivers that are covered. Or, when we talk about tight window throws, it's like, those are great and those make highlight reels, but tight window throws also means that there was a guy covering your wide receiver. And sometimes it's necessary, but if you're doing it all the time, that's not great for you. That's usually, you want to be finding the guys that are open because the plays are designed to get guys open. As far as the throwing accuracy, I think the only way to improve that is just by throwing. I think there just has to be more throws, more in-game stuff. And I think I've said this probably for a few weeks now, and maybe it's going to resonate with, another practice today, is just that there are going to be times during the season where JJ McCarthy misses a throw that he should make. And where he needs to make up for that is scrambling. He needs to move on to the next play. He needs to not lose confidence, which I haven't seen him do at any point. And he needs to just move on and get over it, because every once in a while this year, that's going to happen. You're going to see JJ McCarthy drop back and throw it over somebody, and you're going to go, oh no, he missed the wide open receiver. And it's going to happen because he is not flawless in terms of his accuracy at this moment. And it might happen. And I know, because the next natural comment is always, well, everybody overthrow. Yeah, I know. But I think it's going to happen a little bit more than it would happen to more experienced quarterbacks. Think about Josh Allen early in his career as he was mastering his accuracy. Now, I think that McCarthy's more accurate than Allen was coming out, but it wasn't perfect. And there were some balls that were offline, and he found ways to get his team to the playoffs and to win games because he understood the offense. He made plays with his legs. He handled situations properly. He threw to the right receivers, and then the accuracy came along a little later, but they were able to win games. So I think that it's something you can work with and work around and improve as the year goes along. But I also don't think that you go from being an inexperienced passer overall to all of the sudden, wow, you're Drew Brees. Like it just doesn't work like that. He needs hundreds of more passes to get some of these down and not have the airmail interception that happened today. So, it's something that's going to need work, but throwing to the right place. Like think about Brock Purdy or Jared Goff and how neither one of them, I don't think either one is the most pinpoint passer that I've ever seen, but they make a lot of really good decisions. And if you throw a little behind Jordan Addison, he can catch it. If you throw a little over Justin Jefferson, he can catch it. It's just, do these mistakes hurt them? As in, like, remember, I don't know why this popped into my mind, but remember with Justin Herbert, where early in Herbert's career, one of the biggest criticisms of him coming out was, yeah, the guy's got a huge arm, but just sort of throws everything line drive and doesn't really have the touch figured out yet. He certainly does now at this point in his career, but he didn't coming into the league. And they get to the playoffs in maybe his second year, and he overthrows somebody in the back of the end zone, and they don't score and they end up blowing the game and, right? And a lot of people then are talking about it with Herbert. And there may be situations like that where you miss on a throw and it's going to be costly and someone else has to pick you up. That's going to happen early in JJ McCarthy's career. I think after seeing enough of these practices, we can guarantee that that's going to pop up. It's just, can you overcome that? Can you bounce back? Can you get someone to run the ball into the end zone? Can you make a play on defense to pick up your quarterback? Because there are going to be some interceptions, just like the one that happened today when he just doesn't put the right touch on the ball. And can he make progress with that in the middle of the season, which I think you saw from someone like Bo Nix and you saw from someone like Jaden Daniels? Can you do it? I think with the offense that he has around him, we saw, Sam Darnold last year make a lot of progress within this offense, and McCarthy can too. But it's been a more or less a daily occurrence that there's a few passes where you just go, that one, that kind of can't happen, right? That kind of can't happen of, the ball being thrown, up over somebody who's wide open in the back of the end zone. So that is going to continue to take some work for JJ McCarthy. How did he respond body language wise after the interception? That's never a problem for him. I don't think that's ever a problem for JJ McCarthy. Let me read you what TJ Hawkinson had to say. Since the last video clip I tried to play melted my computer. Let me read you what TJ Hawkinson had to say about JJ McCarthy today in the pocket. And I think this gives you a good sense for just JJ in general and how he handles something like that. Hawkinson said, quote, in my head, he played well today, put the ball where he needed to and played fast, which I totally agree with. We were able to move the ball the whole practice, a lot of things for him to learn from. There's some new stuff that we're doing and it's a lot of fun. To come out here with McCarthy and for him to see a different defense, different routes, different leverages, and playing against different guys was really fun. For him to play as fast as he did today, mentally and physically, a lot of fun. Did Hawkinson have a good time or what? So that I thought was very telling, though, because he kept using the word fast, playing fast. But as far as your confidence question or how he responds body language wise, I mean, he's never happy with a mistake. It might have been slapping the hands together or, whatever it might be. But the next series, he comes out and plays well. And that's always been who JJ McCarthy is. It's just that they're going to have to work their way through, battle their way through some throws that don't hit on the money. Let's see. Katzen Lassie. Hopefully I said that right. Vikings offense has been pass heavy the past few years. Do you foresee the 2025 Vikings looking more like the 2012 Vikings with Adrian Peterson? No, I don't. Nah, I don't think so. I mean, if you're talking 2012, they could really only run the ball that year, and Adrian Peterson had to carry the entire offense. That is not something that I would expect this team to have to do, to lean entirely on Aaron Jones, to lean entirely on Jordan Mason. Remember, this offense was created for JJ McCarthy last year. Sam Darnold ran it, but it was created with JJ McCarthy in mind because he was here and he was in the building, and that's the first offense that they taught him. It's going to be a downfield type of passing offense, intermediate passing offense that gets the ball to Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson. Hawkinson's going to catch those 10-yard passes underneath, and then you're going to see coming over the middle, Justin Jefferson. It looks to me like they want to run outbreaking routes with timing, with some success. Jefferson can always get open in those, and Addison's good at getting open in those. So they're going to push the ball downfield, and they're going to throw it. And they're going to run a good amount of play action, but I think the run game is going to just be more effective. But they're not going to run some sort of 2019 Gary Kubiak, Kevin Stefanski offense where you're just handing the ball off time and time again. I do not foresee that. Rob says, I think the Patriots will be pretty decent. Looks like they have a strong rushing game, also a promising young quarterback and a strong defense. I agree. And that's a lot of the chatter with that team and the reporters from New England that I talked with today is they feel like it's for sure going to be a better team with Mike Vrabel, that it's way more professionally run than it was with Gerard Mayo, who just seemed to have no idea how to run an NFL team. And then, when it comes to the rest of the roster, it's not there yet. Their offensive line's not there yet. Their weapons aren't there yet. And they have to develop some of those things, but their defense could win them games. And, I think they've got an okay running game. Not 100% sure on that because I think Ramondre Stevenson did not practice today. And I didn't see a lot of those run reps and how the Vikings defense looked. But just on paper, they could have a decent enough offense that has Drake May doing a lot of the heavy lifting and then have a really good defense. And for McCarthy to play B plus or B type of football with a lot of pressure against a very good Patriots defense, I thought was really good for him. I thought that was a really good development for today. Expose says JJ looks very composed in the pocket during passing plays, looks more comfortable more than the other young quarterbacks. Are you seeing the same things in practice, even during the preseason game one? I think that his pocket presence has been one of the best things for JJ McCarthy for this summer, is that he has not looked like he's taking all sorts of sacks or struggling to see the field. This was an observation of mine last year, is I know that I've probably mentioned on the show 50 times that I don't think Caleb Williams sees the field very well. I do think JJ McCarthy sees the field very well. He seems to identify which receivers he's supposed to throw to. He's able to find them despite all the big bodies in front of him, the offensive and defensive linemen crashing in, and navigates the pocket quite well. These are the things that he's going to have to keep doing in order for him to be successful. Is he's going to have to scramble. He's going to have to probably make some plays off balance. He's going to have to navigate pressure. But even when you go back to that game that he played against the Raiders last year, so far in the past, but he made plays on the move. He made plays under pressure, and he was able to scramble and get out effectively. And I think we've seen quite a bit of that. And I thought he handled the pressure well today. It's not perfect, but I thought it was well. Crufty, Matthew, why does everyone talk about Max Brosmer like his ceiling is a backup in the NFL? The way he's playing, don't you think he could potentially be a starter? I don't. I don't. That's not like hating or anything. That's just being realistic. Normally, NFL starters are falling into a couple different categories, which is number one, they've been drafted high and they're absolute freaks and they have crazy arms and crazy ceilings of being a franchise quarterback. Or number two is that they've already been somebody else's franchise quarterback and they're on a different team. And I think you could go through all 32 teams, and that's the case on maybe 30 of them. Very, very few have an undrafted free agent who is a backup, who developed over a bunch of years, finally got his chance, and then became a franchise quarterback. Actually, can you name a single one right now in the NFL who falls under that category? I mean, I guess Brock Purdy being the guy from San Francisco who was the 7th round pick and doesn't have the freakish stuff. Maybe he's the closest that you get to that, but the thing with Brosmer is saying that he could be an NFL backup is a huge compliment. I mean, most undrafted free agents, they come in as a camp arm. They throw it to the third stringers. They play in the fourth quarter so the starters don't get hurt. And then they go, work something else. Like, this has been impressive to be talking about a guy who you think could actually play in the league. But we have to remember these highlights and the way he's playing, it is against third and fourth stringers. I think physically is where he would have a tough time. Doesn't mean it's impossible. Kurt Warner proves that it is possible, and so does Brock Purdy. It's just like most likely 98% of the time, it's franchise quarterbacks are drafted in the first round, or they've been around for a long time, and then they become journeymen like a Tyrod Taylor or something. Is that possible for him? Yeah, I think it's possible. But I think it would be getting a little far ahead of ourselves based on what we've seen. What I'm saying, again, huge compliment, can play in the league, can have a long career in the league. That's a good thing. That is definitely a good thing. Expose says there were some people out on the defense, but how many long passes from May would have been sacks in a game? That's a little hard for me to say because I wasn't watching every rep from Drake May. I did see that there were a few downfield passes that he made that were highlights. And what the Patriots reporters were saying was, yeah, that's great. That would have been a sack. And so it sounded to me like, just from the other reporters that were talking about that side of the field, that I wasn't having eyes on for every play. I was kind of trying to peek over and see from time to time. And I did see the ball fly deep a few times from Drake May. I mean, he's got a spectacular arm. So we know that. But it sounded just like the defense was completely dominant. And that does not surprise me whatsoever. So let's see. Conrad said Brosmer does look great. The one caveat I read about it is health. He's dealt with a number of injuries during his college career. I think with him, it's just he has to continue to prove it. You have to continue to prove it time and time again when you're Max Brosmer. And so he has to go out and he's got to have another good preseason game and he's got to have another one. And then during this season, he's got to do great work behind the scenes. And he's got to help them prepare for other teams and all that sort of stuff. Like it's a long road for an undrafted free agent guy to even stick with a team. I think right now he's there, but you kind of have to just keep doing it over and over again and make them stick you here. If I was looking into the future, I would say he's QB2 for next year for the Vikings, and that would be a good thing. In terms of the confidence in Will Reichard, got some 10 out of 10s. I don't think that Minnesota Vikings fans can ever truly be 10 out of 10 on a kicker. 9 out of 10, 7. He'll definitely kick 17 field goals, right? But they're probably not going to kick them all in the same, like one per game. First name, last name is on a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 for Brian. Okay, yeah, you got it. Well, look, he's been really, really good bouncing back from that slow start to training camp, which could be just shaking the rust off. And he has looked like the excellent kicker that he was last year before he got banged up. I shot you 99. McCarthy's inconsistencies appear to be consistent, as in identifiable and repeatable. It's shown itself in the preseason game too. I feel like that's kind of a good thing. Well, yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that like they know what it is. They know like why, JJ McCarthy is throwing like that. Like they know why the ball is going too high. And it's just a matter of him fixing it consistently. And I keep making, golf references time and time again with this because I do think that it's really similar to golf, where if you want to be good at a certain type of shot, you just have to take it over and over and over again. There was a video once of Tiger Woods where he was at something, I don't know, some clinic or whatever it might have been. And they asked Tiger, like, hey, Tiger, what's the key? Like, give us the key. Tell us how I get better at golf. Like, what's your number one thing? And he said, I've got great advice for you. You go to the driving range and hit golf balls. It's like, that's right, man. I mean, that overthrow today, he's going to look at that and he's going to say, what happened on that overthrow? And how can I correct it? And then he's going to work on that throw tomorrow and he's going to do everything he can. That's just how it's got to be with JJ McCarthy, and time is the only thing that's going to resolve it. But for me, if it was over and over and over and over again with McCarthy, like throughout a single practice, if he couldn't bounce back from it, then I would be concerned. But he throws this terrible interception after completing 6 in a row where he looked really good. And then he goes into the 11 on 11s and bang, 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 gets a couple of completions and looks comfortable. And like, that's JJ McCarthy right there. The stat line, as I'm trying to think about what it's going to look like, there's probably going to be some interceptions and there's probably going to be some turnover worthy throws that you're not thrilled with that fly over people's heads. Or there's going to be, a 3rd and 8 where someone is wide open on an outbreaking route and he throws it out of bounds. It's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that all that other stuff gets erased because he's got this flaw that seems to crop up from time to time, because getting the football out in the pocket, dealing with muddy pockets, dealing with the pressure and the leadership in the huddle and all that sort of stuff. We said the word operation like 50 times after the preseason game, but it was very telling. He got the call in, he got everybody lined up, and then off they went. And like that's really good. Like that's what this is supposed to look like. Even if, all right, this throw was a little behind somebody. Okay, well that you can deal with, but not knowing the play or not getting guys lined up or getting rattled or struggling with the different pre-snap stuff or holding onto the ball too long. Like that stuff's hard to resolve at this point. He's checking a lot of boxes for good stuff that quarterbacks have to do. And he's going to have to smooth the other stuff out with the accuracy over the season as we go forward. Jesh, guys aren't giving me a lot of easy names like Todd or Bob today, are you? Says, are you concerned about the amount of starters having days off? Seems like a red flag to me. I feel like it could either mean not being fully prepared to start off the season or injury prone season. I am not, because this has always been KOC. Always. It's just who KOC is, where he believes in making sure that he's not losing guys in training camp. And I fully agree with him. At first, in 2022, I'm going to tell you the truth. I was like shocked. I was like, how many veteran days are we giving out here? Like, how are these guys even going to remember how to play football when they get back out there? And then they came out and they won 13 games and they were prepared and they crushed the Packers in the opener and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, seems that Mr. O'Connell knows what he's doing here. And I think the same thing goes for this with the veteran days, where they just understand that August 13th, it's not worth it to press it. And as far as having an injury-filled season, it could totally happen because it's football. But I don't think they're doing anything right now that's an indicator of, oh, they will be injured a lot. And they have players with some, issues, in the past with injuries, but that's just so hard to predict. Aaron Jones came in, well, this guy's been injured in the past and then played the whole season. Like, I don't know. How can we ever predict those things? I think what you'll probably hear if they have injury issues is, see, we told you that you got too many injured guys. And if they don't, it will just never come up. It's kind of like when they didn't play starters in the preseason game in 2022 and they won a bunch of games and no one ever talked about it. And then they start out slow in 2023. And so then KOC gets asked about it. Don't you wish you played the starters in the preseason game? Like, sometimes we just let the results end up dictating how we talk about it. Stewart says, what do you make of Paul Allen's comments on Turner being underwhelming in the game and worry that Gabe might be overtaking him? He said there's a dark cloud on the horizon. Wow. I did not hear Paul's comments, so I cannot speak on them directly because I don't know what he said. I would say this. I think Dallas Turner has had overall a really great camp. I don't think Gabe Murphy is overtaking him, even though I'm impressed by Gabe Murphy. And I think Dallas Turner played 9 snaps. 9. And they weren't game planned at all. And also, he's trying to stay healthy in the preseason game and just get through the first drive. So what I've seen so far from Dallas Turner is improvement in quickness, improvement in his bag, improvement in his strength, and a lot of creative usage for Dallas Turner. I don't know if that means that he's going to get 9 sacks, because the usage is going to matter, and they have 2 of the best players in the NFL at the outside linebacker position. But I haven't seen anything that would imply a dark cloud for Dallas Turner. I really haven't. I thought he's had a very good training camp so far. So I guess we'll have to see as we get into the season. We don't really know. We're just trying to take a swing at it, but he's somebody that's repeatedly pressured the quarterback and, made plays as much as you can make plays defensively. He's been physical. I've liked, my own perspective is I've liked what I've seen from Dallas Turner, and he's somebody that I've been talking about on the show, feeling like he did have a good attitude coming back. He worked out with Jonathan Grenard. It's very visible, the difference in his body. So I'm feeling good about where he's at. I just think that judging someone in any way who's a starter or is going to play a big role off preseason is insane. It's just, I just never do it. As a rule, I never do it. The third and fourth string guys, absolutely. Those guys are playing for their careers out there. But 9 snaps on a single drive where nobody looks like they wanted to play, I don't know about that. First name, last name says, just about to make an Allen comparison. Not Paul Allen, but Josh Allen. If JJ can limit mistakes while he's working on his touch and consistency, and things can start to come together in a year or two, I'll be happy. The thing is that you can win. you can win with some accuracy miscues. You can't win if you throw a bunch of interceptions. You can't win if you don't get the football out or if you make bad, terrible decisions. You can absolutely win if you overthrow somebody and the ball goes out of bounds. You can overthrow somebody. I mean, think about this, like interceptions from an expected points added perspective analytically sometimes are worth less than a sack just because of the difference in the field position. So if you throw a ball 20 yards down the field and it's picked off, it becomes like an arm punt. It doesn't always kill you. And they're going to need sometimes people to pick them up. They're going to need a great catch here or there. They're going to need a defensive stop after an interception. Like these are just realities that they can do as a team because they're strong enough, but he is not completely refined. I think you could still win that way. Heck, we saw Case Keenum win a lot of games by not being the most accurate, but he managed the game well. He didn't, he had some crazy throws that Mike Zimmer was driven insane by, but you look at his actual turnover numbers, it wasn't a lot. I think that's going to be really important. And the comparison that I like to make about how he needs to play this year is not one that anybody really loves, but then you look up this guy's win-loss record for his career and you go, okay, I get it. And it's kind of Alex Smith-like, which is make the throws that are there, scramble with your legs and make some plays. Don't make big mistakes. And then start from that position and then grow. I was saying the same thing about Sam Darnold last year. Like, hey, don't make mistakes. Keep the train on the tracks. If that means throwing for 175 yards for the first couple weeks, then just do that and then work your way into it. And the growth that we saw from Kirk eventually with the offense, from Darnold with the offense, makes me think that that's his best potential track, which is if he can grow into it as the season goes along to where you're playing the Eagles and then you're going out to play the Chargers, like that's when you need him to start peaking in the offense. If he was peaking on August 13th, I mean, that would be a little better, but I don't think that's realistic. Michael says, sounds like JJ is looking like a B grade so far in camp with this Vikings defense. Could you see this team as a real contender? Well, yeah, it's not just their defense, but it's also, when it comes to the playmakers, like you don't have to be a 10 out of 10 or an A plus with the playmakers you have. And we saw that today from Jordan Addison. I mean, Addison was open. He was breaking off routes. And I know he's not going to play for the first 3 games, but just imagine that being Justin Jefferson. You have guys that can make you right if you're JJ McCarthy. And even just today, I really thought that TJ Hawkinson was huge for him today. And that's where I keep going back to Hawkinson is going to catch 1 million passes. I keep thinking this is going to happen for TJ Hawkinson because he seems to be the guy that, all right, drop back and, I'm not seeing, the downfield route and, there's TJ Hawkinson underneath and just trust him. And he's been doing that quite a bit. I thought he was very good with Hawkinson today. Skull 357. Is there a punter battle? Does the Australian have a chance? I don't think the Australian has a chance, but every time I watch him, I'm kind of like, I don't think I've ever seen a ball fly through the air the same way that it does when Oscar Chapman punts it. And that must have something to do with the way that he's kicking it. The Australians, I guess, maybe it spins the opposite way, south of the equator or something. Like I have no idea, but he's interesting for them. But I also think that Ryan Wright's going to be the punter. Like when they do their drills, the first guy coming out, it's Ryan Wright as the punter, and he's probably going to start that way. Skull 357. Comparing Sam Darnold last year in joint practices, how does McCarthy compare as far as mistakes or success? Well, actually, the first day of joint practices for Sam Darnold might have been like his worst day of the entire summer. I thought it was a really rough first day of joint practices. The difference, though, was now Cleveland's defense from a statistical perspective didn't finish amazing, but I think they actually were amazing, and their quarterback made their numbers go really bad, Deshaun Watson. They had a ton of talent, a ton of talent. And so they gave this Vikings offense a really hard time last year. And then in day two, it was better in day two. And so I think where we're really going to see um, I'm sorry, I'm reading the word Sam Darnold. For JJ McCarthy tomorrow is get into the red zone situations. That's where I really would like to see is the red zone situations. And they're going to do more 2-minute drill stuff. But the 2-minute drill, he just seems really like pretty locked in. He looks like he's pretty locked in. But when it comes to the red zone stuff, that's where that sharpness with accuracy has been a little bit spotty throughout the summer. So you guys are now naming all the way down to Bobby Hebert, undrafted quarterbacks who made it. And I'm not saying it's impossible, my friends. It's not impossible. Anything is possible, as Kevin Garnett once said, but it's unlikely. So that's why when you talk about a ceiling for players, we usually talk about, the most likely scenario, not the scenario that would be sort of pie in the sky. CJ says he'll never be 10 out of 10 on a kicker. Oh, man. A lot of you seem to be very, very high on Will Reichard in the FanDuel question of the day. So, I respect it. I respect that you keep coming back. And like Michael Scott once said, you're ready to be heard again. Alexander says, what would your score prediction for week 1 be? Well, I have not thought about that just yet, Alexander. And we're just at the joint practice, but 2-point favorites and over under 43.5. I think that right now I would pick the Vikings to win that game by 10 points based on just everything that we're hearing from Bears practice. But I'm going to have to get Courtney on the show and we're going to have to go from there. And there's still a long way to go before the end of training camp. That's probably it. That's probably it. Let's see. Catton Lassie says, do you think JJ has gotten progressively better each practice from OTAs? Should be a good sign if he's trending upwards despite not having a perfect practice every day. Yeah. So, I mean, I wouldn't call it every day. It's not like every single day JJ McCarthy is 1% better than he was the day before. It's more like he has a great practice and then one that's not as good. And there was a dog days of summer type of couple of practices for him, maybe last week, beginning of last week, where it was really ugly. And then he bounced back. And then the night practice was horrible. And then he bounced back. And then he played, I thought, fine in the preseason game, looked pretty good. And then I thought he had a fine day today, if not a good day today overall, considering that he was getting a lot of pressure and that he came through in the 2-minute drill. I thought it was a good practice. So it's a little bit of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But as far as has he made progress? Oh yeah. I mean, definitely has made a lot of progress since OTAs, where he looked like he was just getting back into the mix. Speaking of practice, this messed up my video camera last time, so I'm going to give this a shot. If it does again, just give me a second. I'll get it back. But I wanted to bring you some views of practice today, so hopefully this works. Looks like it's working. Okay, so let me know if it's not, but it looks like it's working. This was my view from practice today when the Vikings were doing the one-on-ones with the Patriots in their warm-ups. So you have just quarterbacks throwing to one receiver running a route. So you guys can watch that, and I'll keep answering questions here. And again, let me know if there's a problem with the video. Mr. Mayer says, how many kicks do the kickers make in practice? Seems like we've only heard a couple dozen. Do they kick like 100 behind the scenes? Yes, they do. Yeah, they work on a separate field. And I'm going to tell you the honest truth, my friend. I never look at them. I don't know what they're doing over there. They're working on whatever they're working on. I think it must be nice to be a kicker during training camp. But then when it's time to run on the field, like they run on the field and they do their kicks. But as far as like how many have they had to take overall, I think that it's you're probably right. It probably is only like 15 or 20 kicks so far, and they'll just continue to do that throughout. But it's I'm sure it's a lot over on the other field. I just never watch. DJ Willie G, what's the word on the defense today? So again, I didn't see it myself very much of it, because if you look right here on the video, you could see my viewpoint. So I'm watching practice from this view, and it was the other far field where the defense is at. But I went around and asked everybody who was on that field, and it sounded to me like Drake May had some absolutely wow moments, as you'd expect from a super talented quarterback. I did see Jay Ward get an interception over on the other field. I think that was against the second team. But it sounded like the D-line was totally dominant, and that has been the case for practice all year long. And what one of the Boston reporters said was, Drake May had some great plays after he was sacked. Ken 952 says, will McCarthy get any playing time on Saturday? Almost no chance. Almost no chance. Unless he has a horrible day tomorrow and they want to shake it off, I would say there's no chance that he's going to play on Saturday. This right here is what they consider his preseason game. So he's only going to play, just that one preseason game, get a little dress rehearsal, and then go from there. Chris, how did Huber look today? He flashed last weekend. He did. I can't tell you that I was watching Joe Huber like on every play, but I thought that the second team offense looked good in terms of its pass protection for Sam Howell. The first team offense had some more issues with protecting against the starters of the Patriots, because the starters of the Patriots are very, very good. But the second team, Howell had time to throw. I thought he even threw to the right places and just missed accuracy-wise a handful of times. But Huber's a guy that I keep trying to figure out a way. How can I get him on the 53? I don't know if that's possible that I can get him on the 53-man roster, but he's somebody that might be a development guard that they are really interested in going forward. Eric said his KOC calling the plays that involve throws that he feels like McCarthy needs to work on or maybe not comfortable with. That is a good question, and I don't know the answer to that question. I would assume that what they're trying to do is get JJ McCarthy very comfortable, very, very comfortable with the throws that they know are the best in their offense. So just for example, with Kirk Cousins, he was really good at the intermediate area of the field. That was Kirk. Very accurate, on time, where when JJ, Justin Jefferson is breaking toward the middle of the field, the ball's coming out, throws with anticipation, and then hits him. I think that McCarthy has done it a little bit different way with a lot of like line drive and hard throws, but he fits it into those windows and he makes the decisions and he sees the field. So a lot of those throws are ones that just seem to work in this offense. I mean, even Sam Darnold, it was pretty darn good when it came to, throwing in the intermediate areas. So there's a lot of that. I think it's just, you're going to have to master these throws to have this work, have this offense work. So here they are, and we're going to run a lot of them. And that's a lot to Addison today, ton to Addison today. He just had a great day. I thought he was really, really good today. So there's a look at some of the wide receivers, and nobody is telling me that there was any full pause there with the camera, so we're good there. Let's see. Does Dallas Turner look bigger? Noticeably. It was one of the first things that I thought when I got to training camp this year was, oh, hello, Dallas Turner. You look like you've been working out this offseason. So I think it's been a good training camp for Dallas Turner. There's been a lot of discussion from him and from his teammates about his mentality and his work ethic coming into this year. And we don't know exactly how it's going to play out when we get to the real games, but I think he's done the things he's been asked to do and that he's made pretty big progress for this year. And so I still have him as being somebody that can make a pretty big impact on this defense. Is he going to be defensive MVP? I don't think so. But can he get some sacks? Can he maybe drop back and get a pick? Like, can he be a guy that causes a lot of confusion? Yes, I think he can. And I think he's worked on his pass rush moves. I think he's worked on his power. I think he's worked on his speed. So I like where Dallas Turner is at right now. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I like where he's at right now. As far as the preseason game, he did nothing. But I wouldn't expect him to. I wouldn't ask him to. I'd be like, you know what? If you can avoid getting hurt, let's just not get hurt. Just don't do anything too serious. Don't show them your pass rush moves. And why would you do that? if you're Dallas Turner and you know that there's going to be everybody trying to get as much film on you for week 1 as possible, why would you show moves? So I don't evaluate preseason that way. And Gabe Murphy was great. So that's a good development for them. Gabe Murphy was playing in the second and third quarter where guys are playing for their lives. Frank says if you play McCarthy in the preseason, you have to play at minimum the starting offensive line. He said he does not. It's not worth the risk. 100%, 100%. These are and also you'd be asking McCarthy to throw the ball. I don't know how many times he threw it today. 30. You're asking him to throw it 30 times and then go out there and throw it more. I don't know if you want to do that to his arm right now when you've already had a lot of throwing of the football so far in the summertime. How Alexander says, how's the kick return and punt return battle going? Well, I mean, the punt return battle just started, I guess, because it looked like it was locked into Rondale Moore. And then Rondale Moore was lost for the season. So now it appears to be Silas Bolden versus Miles Price. Does anybody step up there? And the kick returner looks like it's Ty Felton. Now, do they try other people, when it comes to this preseason game that's coming up? That's going to be one of the things that I'm really watching for is, do other people get a chance, or do they feel really good about where Ty Felton is at? They have to make this decision on so few reps. They have to make this decision on punt and kick returner. I mean, you can't simulate it in practice. Today, they were just having the punters punt it up, kind of all alone out there, and the guy catch it. Like, there's no way to simulate it. You have to be out there in the game and do it. I thought Silas Bolden looked okay in those first couple of reps the other day, but man, I mean, that's a rookie who was just playing, in the college football championship, who now you're saying, hey, handle the ball every time we make a stop. I don't know. Skull 357. I don't see any Josh Allen comparison with JJ. Allen is a physical freak who learned in 3 years before learning how to throw. No, so I think that you're maybe missing the comparison, which was in Josh Allen's second season. He made the playoffs with the Bills without being perfect accuracy-wise. And he made good decisions, and he scrambled with the ball, and they had a good defense, and he made plays, and that's how they did it. That's kind of the point, is flawless accuracy is great, but you can still win without perfect accuracy. I'm not saying McCarthy is like Josh Allen from a physical perspective, though he is, I think, from a leadership perspective. That you get it pretty early on with why JJ McCarthy is such a liked guy in the huddle by the other players. And that's what I mean about understanding the offense, making good decisions, protecting the football, like all that sort of stuff. Josh Allen had to learn that along the way, but he did get the Bills to the playoffs without having taken that big step accuracy wise. And what they're going to be looking for is for McCarthy to do that probably through the middle of the season, I would think. Let's see. Neil says, do you think by now KOC knows what JJ is good at and is forcing him to work on the things that he is not more? It's possible. Does he know by now what he's good at? I think that they're still learning that. And even TJ Hawkinson mentioned that they are trying some new things and doing some new things during these couple of joint practices. Of course, and he's not going to announce what those things are, but that he's doing some new things in the joint practices. And I think that they are trying to still figure out exactly what he's most comfortable with. And if I had to guess, I would say they're going to much more lean into what he's comfortable with than try to force him to do things that he's not. I see. The thing is that the throws that are inaccurate, it's usually not a bad decision. It's Jalen Naylor running across the back of the end zone wide open, and whoops, you just missed him. Or Josh Oliver opened and you overthrow him. Or today, Naylor is open. He made a good decision. He just overthrew it. So, like, is he comfortable with it? And I think the inaccuracy can be so in and out that you can't exactly say, well, it's this throw, and this throw that have been inaccurate. And all these other throws are perfect. So we're just not going to do 1, 2, and 3. It's been on one rep, or like I said about the 7-on-7, he had 6 in a row. Like bang, 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 bang. And then the 7th one just goes flying and, it's an interception. There's also a part of me that thinks, all right, I mean, if he's just crushing it on 6 out of 6 and overthrows one for 7 out of 7, of course I'm going to come back and tell you guys what happened, but are we like overdoing it a little bit there? Very possible that we're overdoing it a little bit with analyzing every single throw. Like the numbers I had today, he completed 70% of his passes today, is what I had. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. With only one that I thought was a really bad miss. And some of the other throws that were incomplete were pretty accurate. There was one where Addison jumped up and tried to moss a guy and didn't quite bring it in. And it looked like Keenan McCardle kind of thought he should have brought it in because he's Keenan McCardle. So I thought he had it from an accuracy perspective. If I was, and maybe that's a thing to do tomorrow. Like what was the accuracy percentage? I thought it was pretty high today overall. Skull Vikes MN, how has Bo Richter been doing? Saw it was his birthday on Vikings Instagram. Happy birthday, Bo Richter. Well, he has gotten a lot of reps at outside linebacker. Now, I don't think that he is going to, if I'm doing the order, I don't think he's going to end up above Gabe Murphy. I think they feel great about Murphy. So it's going to be Grenard, Van Ginkel, Turner, Murphy, Richter. And then Chaz Chambliss is putting his name in the mix too. He's played pretty well. So, just when it comes to Richter, though, he's going to be a huge special teamer for them and might be able to carve out a role, but I think he's mainly going to be a special teams guy. Alexander, last year in a camp with Darnold, you had wow, this could really work moment. Have you had that with McCarthy yet? I've kind of had the opposite, but not like, wow, it can't work. As in, I haven't seen anything that would make me think it can't work. That's where I've been with this. Where with Darnold, it was so different because it was such a surprise, right? It was like, oh, Sam Darnold? Like, as the entire world is picking them to win 5 games, and we're watching practice going, am I seeing what I think I'm seeing? Right? Like, I'm having to convince myself that Sam Darnold is really what I'm seeing because he had been so poor during his career. My expectation for JJ McCarthy is that he's good. And he's a 10th overall draft pick. He's got a year under his belt. And so I haven't seen anything that would make me go the other way. And unfortunately, because Kellen Mond is one of the only young quarterbacks that I've seen here during my time, I keep going back to that where it was pretty easy to tell, like, this is not going to go in a good direction. I have not had a single moment with JJ McCarthy where I've gone, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be a mess. This is going to be a disaster. Like, what's going to happen with, with JJ McCarthy? Like, I haven't felt that way. I've felt like most of the things that have happened have been stuff that is just going to require more and more time, more and more passes, running the offense more and more. Like, that's it. That's the only way you can really look at it. Is these things can sort themselves out, some of the accuracy and so forth, but what can't be fixed is if someone has an issue with pocket presence, if someone has an issue with decision making or seeing the field or not getting the ball out. To me, this is the number one tell if you're watching a practice. So if you happen to be going tomorrow or you're watching preseason around the league, and Darnold would do this sometimes, if a quarterback is sitting there looking around, and you can count to 3 or 4 in your head, that's not good. But that's not how it goes with JJ. And that's why I like that Hawkinson quote where he said he's just played fast. And I think playing fast is the most important thing. Conrad said, how was your day? My day was great. My day's always great. If I'm doing this, my day's always great. Heard that Ty Felton had a pretty good day and Naylor not so much. So Naylor did have a pass that he should have caught. There was a little bit low, but came across the middle. He should have caught. He caught a couple other ones. I didn't think it was some sort of terrible day for Naylor. I don't think it's been a great overall camp for him. He's had to step up into a role that's just, I think, a little above his pay grade, being the Jordan Addison role in the offense. And I did notice Ty Felton a couple times. Yeah, he made one good catch across the middle from Sam Howell. I think Felton's coming along. And that's why when somebody who's a young player doesn't immediately jump to the first team, like, let's find out before we decide, oh, they blew it with this draft pick or whatever. And Felton, where I thought he got some confidence was that preseason game. He caught a first down pass and he, uh, had that play as the punt gunner. He picked up the kick return and that worked out okay. There was a penalty, but he returned it just fine. I think getting out there was pretty good for Ty Felton and making some plays and feeling confident. But he's coming along. He's developing, and to get a couple of first team reps today, even though it wasn't a ton, still sort of says, hey, you're doing the right things. He's been with the second team the whole time. It's not like they have put him on the bench or on the side. He's in development mode. But I think that with Rondale Moore out for the season, if they don't get somebody else, that Ty Felton becomes a guy that they're going to want to put in to be that playmaker, because that was something they designed in the offseason with Rondale Moore in mind. This is what Keenan McCardle was talking to me about just a week and a half ago, was they're looking for that. And when they drafted Felton, they said that we're looking for a guy who could get the ball in his hands and make plays. So I think they want him to be part of this. Mark says, I get that joint practices are good, but shouldn't JJ be playing in all the preseason games? He's young and needs as many reps as possible. So in the past, I would have felt that way. Yeah. But what I know is these joint practices, I mean, you listen to anything KOC says. Every single time he talks about this, he emphasizes it a ton of how important it is to him. And if you think about running your real offense in how many ever plays that they're going to do, well, he's probably going to throw 60 passes over 2 days. And you're running your real stuff against somebody else's real stuff, ones versus ones. All the starters are out there. It's Carlton Davis. It's Milton Williams. It's the real players. Keon White. Oh my gosh. That guy looks like close to Daniil Hunter with his freakishness. So they're running the real dudes versus real dudes. If you run them in a preseason game, do you get that? I mean, Houston didn't play Daniil Hunter. They didn't play Will Anderson. Like, they're not playing at full speed. And the guys who are out there are trying, but one of the things you don't want is some try-hard guy who's trying to make the team with his last breath hitting your quarterback. So it's as close as you can get to real football without the injury risk. And O'Connell puts so much more emphasis on these games than he does when it comes to the preseason. Preseason is for the guys who are trying to make the practice squad, really. Alexander, can we have your updated guess on Vikings regular season wins based on what you've seen? I think last time you said 11. Yeah, so that's my point about JJ McCarthy that I have continued to go back to time and time again, which is I went into this camp saying, am I going to see anything that makes me move off that number? So right after minicamp, I said 11 wins. And then every single day I walk in saying, am I going to see something from JJ McCarthy that makes me think this team can't win 11 with him as the quarterback? So far, I have not seen anything from McCarthy that would make me think that. And a lot of it is just how it looks from a tempo perspective. Is that the right word? Where he gets the call, he gets to the line of scrimmage, guys get lined up, snap comes, drops back, ball comes out a lot of times. Now, it's not every time. There's scrambling. Sometimes there's a sack from time to time, but we see so many good reps like that where he's identifying where to throw the ball. It's coming out. It's complete. Completing 70% of passes in a joint practice is pretty darn good. It's not 90%. I think, like, if Peyton Manning was the quarterback, he probably wouldn't let the ball hit the ground. But I mean, it looked pretty solid, and it has all year except for 2 or 3 practices that were miserable for him, that were the night practice, and then a little bit earlier there were a couple that were pretty brutal, I will admit, and those are factored in as well to the inconsistency conversation. Like, there's probably going to be a game that he plays that's just surprisingly not good, because he's still a young quarterback, and that happens. Like when Bo Nix threw for negative yards in the first half of a game last year. Like, it happens. Jaden Daniels had a couple bad games. CJ Stroud had a couple bad games. Like, it's going to happen. But I would not move off that number. And not only that, but okay, Rondale Moore's out for the season. That's bad. But when you look around the roster, it's pretty darn healthy at the moment. And so you can knock on whatever wood is near you when I say that, but a healthy roster with a ton of talent and a great front seven. The offensive line, I think, is concerning me a little bit with how they played today. I think they need to have a better day tomorrow, but the running game looks really good. The screen game we mentioned is looking better. Like there's a lot of arrow up stuff. You're going to have to deal with Addison being out for those first 3 games. That's a little bit of a concern. But as far as how McCarthy's played, I think it's been a good camp for him. Overall, good camp. I would give it a B to B plus so far, and we'll see where it goes tomorrow. I can't give it an A because it's not consistent enough yet. But there's a few more days to go with this. There's another joint practice, and they don't play until September? Is it September 8th or something? I mean, so they still got more time to work on consistency, but no, I would not change that pick right now for JJ McCarthy. And that's kind of the bottom line of I went into it starting with, hey, I think they can win 11. They could be right there for the division title. Now, like, tell me I'm wrong, JJ McCarthy. And so far he hasn't told me he's wrong. Funny boy Roddy says, I'm very concerned about Jeff Okudah. Well, look, I mean, with Jeff Okudah, this is one of the hardest things to talk me into, is the idea that somebody who's had such a tough career could all of the sudden just flip a switch and, be a really good player. That's pretty hard. But when you're talking about that specific role, if it ends up being a 450 snap type of role because they play a lot of 3 safeties, then can you survive it with him? Can he bring you something specific? Probably. But, I'm going to have to see it myself. I think he's had a very good camp, but it's just going to have to see it myself. How did David deep in the weeds? How did old pal Parker Romo look? I did ask about Parker Romo. I did ask the other Patriot writers, and they said that he's done pretty well so far. So maybe Parker. I like that guy. I mean, he was good last year. He was very good. By the way, if you haven't answered the FanDuel question of the day yet, and you just jumped in here this evening, the FanDuel question of the day was the Vikings are plus 1,500 to kick a field goal in every single game. Okay, I don't think I would take a bet on that, but give me a 1 to 10 for your confidence in Will Reichard. Most of you were somewhere between 7 and 10, and I would agree based on the way he's turned it around in the middle of camp here. Sloth, what do you want to see out of day 2 of joint practices? Well, the red zone is the big thing. To me, that is the big ticket item of how does JJ McCarthy look in the red zone against a different team. They may have been working on stuff in the red zone drills, specific types of throws, specific types of plays in, earlier in training camp. And you can write some of that off because of it. They're trying to score. Like, they're doing everything they can to try to score in the red zone drills. And Vrabel mentioned doing more situational stuff. So I just want to see that. Thank you so much, TLS, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. This is another thing. Steve says, will Thursday practice have punt returner auditions against live competition? So last year, they did have against Cleveland a lot of special team stuff in the second day. And I hope so. I hope that we see, I mean, they should be practicing the kick return stuff too. So I do think that we're going to see a lot of that tomorrow, and we will get a judge on that. Let's see. The Brosmer hype has to be stopped. Did anyone watch the Gophers last year? I would wonder if you watched the Gophers last year, if that's your comment, because Max Brosmer was good. They did not have great wide receivers. They did not have the running game that they've had in the past. And Brosmer was within this much of beating Penn State. Like, I thought Max Brosmer had a great season for the Gophers last year. I'm not sure what Gophers you were watching, and I'm sure you haven't seen as much practice as I have. So Brosmer has been very good in training camp. Very good. It's often with the threes, and it's often against the threes, but he's looked like a real NFL quarterback. And I think they're going to keep him maybe on the roster here, and they're going to keep wanting to develop him. because I think they've found something. I don't know what, but I think they've found something in Max Brosmer. Also, very mature kid, very smart kid. Tim says, did they get through the day without injuries? As far as I understand, yeah. Now, sometimes stuff crops up, but as far as I understand. QB depth chart does look to me like it will be McCarthy, Howell, and Brosmer, and then Rippon. They'll probably try to bring him back, I would guess. As far as Van Ginkel's injury, I don't know about that. It sounded like a veteran type of day, but they don't have to give us a lot of details. It did not sound serious. Wally, yes, the fantasy show is coming back. I would like to make it part of the live stream, actually, like on Wednesday nights. We did one episode, and then actually we recorded today about the NFC North. So I'm hoping to bring you that later on in the week, but, joint practices. So gotta be going hardcore on the joint practices. Mr. Mayor, who do you think is most likely to be both waived and then poached by another team before making it through to the practice squad? Yeah, I mean, Joe Huber is a good one for this. I don't think that they are going to cut Zamiah Vaughn. He's had a really good camp. Who was good in the preseason? I mean, when you go back through the years, there's just not that many players who have been poached. So I don't worry too much about it. I mean, I remember when we were talking last year, right before cutdowns, and it was, oh man, I hope they don't cut this guy. I hope they don't cut that guy. And then they cut most of the guys that everybody loved. And then they just got him back on the practice squad because most teams love what they have in-house. And it's also much, much harder to identify talent based on preseason games than it is in-house watching your own guys. So if you're going to make another spot on your 53 and cut somebody that's your guy, you got to be really certain. So just for example, you could see them doing this at tight end 3. Like they're desperate. Or last year, the Panthers were so unhappy with their secondary, they just signed a couple of guys off waivers. It can happen. But who would be the most likely? It's probably if you're just watching the tape from the preseason game, if you're on the outside of this building, Joe Huber would make the most sense. If I was another team that had nothing at guard, I probably would pick him up just based on that game alone to take a shot at him. Dayton in the nickel defense, who is typically the inside corner. My understanding is Murphy, Rogers, and Okudah have been the 3 in the nickel. Is it Murphy or Okudah playing inside? It's Murphy. Yeah, it's Murphy. And this was something that KOC talked about at the, I want to say, owners meetings when we asked them about, Isaiah Rogers and kind of how that whole thing worked out. And he said that they would like more Byron Murphy in the slot because they felt like when they signed him that they wanted him to be a nickel corner, but then he was good on the outside and their personnel, they just, couldn't make it work. But, that's how they end up playing the 3 safeties all the time is kind of because they didn't have enough corners. So they're like, let's just get Josh Metellus out on the field. But he is a very good nickel corner. He tackles extremely well. He sees the quarterback really well, and he's good in those short area type of situations. I think he's not the fastest long runner, but short area, very quick. So they like him there, and that would put Okudah on the outside. That's my question is how much are they really going to do the nickel package? I mean, how much are they really going to use that with Okudah in there? Is it only going to be like third downs? Is it only going to be in certain situations? Could they still rotate in Mekhi Blackman? Like there's stuff to be found out there that I'm not really sure of yet. Because it seems to me like Theo Jackson's had a great camp, and they're going to want Theo Jackson and Josh Metellus on the field at the same time. Mr. Mayer, what's the difference in skill sets with kick returners and punt returners need to have from a layman's perspective? They seem the same. Not exactly. The biggest difference is the catching of the football. That is the biggest difference, is the catching of the football. And I agree with Cat and Lassie that says days like this, you appreciate Marcus Sherrills. Sherrills made it look so easy to catch that football, but it is crazy. I mean, I've said to people, whether it's players or coaches or whatever, like, you got to be nuts, right? And the answer is yes, you have to be nuts. So you got to be a little crazy to be back there and be able to look up and also look down, look away from the ball as it's coming at you to see, is it a fair catch? It's very easy to do on TV when we're sitting in our couches. It's very hard to do out there. I mean, catching the football on a kickoff, it just comes right to you, and then you catch it and run with it. Not that hard. Although this year it might bounce around a little bit, so I think they want a guy with some ball skills. But when it comes to that punt returning, it's very difficult to catch. So you got to start there, and then it's much more quick twitch than it is long speed. So long speed is like kick returners. You want to have somebody who can hit an edge and go 100 yards. Whereas punt returners, you probably need to get like 10 or 12. So it's quickness first and then the longer speed. Hopefully that makes some sense. And then, you guys brought up Percy Harvin. Yeah, that guy could just do anything. Anything on a football field, Percy Harvin could do it. Alexander, on a scale of Kirk to Jaden Daniels, how fast is JJ McCarthy? Well, he's not Jaden Daniels. And he's not Kirk, that's for sure. So the extremes can be tossed out because he's way faster than Kirk and he ain't as fast as Jaden Daniels. I think that there is a saying in scouting that you'll hear every once in a while that is quicker than fast. And I think that JJ McCarthy is quicker than fast. His first couple of steps are very quick. So when he makes that decision, I'm scrambling, step, he's not just immediately getting caught from behind. I don't think that if he got into the open field, this is where Jaden Daniels is just way next level. I don't think if he got into the open field that he's dodging tacklers like Barry Sanders. But you see that from Jaden Daniels or Percy Harvin. I don't think he's doing Percy Harvin stuff. That's how I see Daniels or Lamar Jackson at quarterback, as if Percy had played quarterback, that's what it would look like. That's not McCarthy. But is it McCarthy where it's 4th and 4 and they get after him and he outruns everybody the sideline, gets a first down? Oh, yeah, it definitely is. I think he's faster than Sam Darnold. I think he's quite a bit quicker than Sam Darnold with his feet, I would say. So I look at him as like similar to Baker Mayfield in this way, where he can impact the game with his legs, but he's not going to like be running read option and gaining 50-yard touchdowns. Funny boy Roddy, how is Dwight McGlothern doing? It looks like Dwight McGlothern has been passed on the depth chart by Zemiah Vaughn. That's how it's looked by the way that they're using them. I still think he's on the roster, but it just has looked that way. Like they've been using Zemiah Vaughn more with the twos than Dwight McGlothern. So, and usually when it's the twos in a base package, it's Vaughn and Okudah. And then in the nickel, they've got Blackman. So it looks like he has been pushed a little bit down the depth chart this year. I would not expect to see a whole lot of Dwight McGlothern playing this year, even though, he's a playmaker and every time he's in there, he makes plays on the ball. But it just seems like they've really been into Zemiah Vaughn in the way that he's playing. He is really, really good at tracking wide receivers who are smaller than him. And he's pretty physical and he's made plays on the football. Like just really since day one, he's been good. That feels like a little bit of an Ivan Pace situation where they just got him in and went, oh, okay, this guy can really play. Skull 357, easy Matt. Even KOC admits accuracy was what kept him from succeeding in the NFL. Accuracy is not teachable. Mechanics, yes, but God-given talent, not so much. So, look, I mean, Kevin O'Connell was just not an NFL quarterback. He was a 3rd-round draft pick who was a great running quarterback in college, but was not an NFL QB. The accuracy difference between Kevin O'Connell and JJ McCarthy is gargantuan, and I'm sure that O'Connell would tell you that as well. That JJ McCarthy has NFL starter caliber accuracy, and on some plays, he is really impressively accurate, where you're like, wow, I mean, right on the money. I think where we're talking about where it's reps that are needed and development that is needed, it's mostly a conversation about getting more throws and smoothing out some of those bad ones. But on a play-to-play basis, I mean, I mentioned to you that I thought about 70 or more % were accurate throws today. Like that's been him throughout camp, that it's been accurate. He has been a good thrower of the football this training camp overall. But it's those one or two per practice where you go, oh, yeah, that's the one he's going to need back. And that's the one, if it happens in a game, it could cost them. But there's no comparison to guys who like didn't even have the accuracy to be in the league. He's going to start on one of the best teams top to bottom in the NFL for a reason. If they didn't believe in his accuracy could win games, they would have gotten somebody else, because they could have, for sure. We know who would have been here. And he's a pretty accurate quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. So they decided that they wanted to go with JJ McCarthy for a reason. But as I'm detailing the practice, I'm going to tell you that certain throws were not perfect. But can it be developed for somebody who's 22? Of course it can. Of course it can. Now, can he ever be Kurt Warner? No, probably not. I mean, this is like shooting a basketball, right? Like Steph Curry is the all-time freak at shooting a basketball. If I tell you that someone could be a good shooter, it doesn't mean they could be Steph Curry. But, do you need to be Steph Curry to be a good basketball player? No, probably not, right? Invasion, who do you think won today on offense and defense? Defense, I didn't get a chance to see a lot of today. It sounds like the defensive line won on that side. But as far as the Vikings offense versus Patriots defense, I thought that was a really good battle. I don't think that it was perfect, but I think that it was, I think that was pretty good. So I thought it was 50-50 for the Vikings offense and the Patriots defense. If you were talking about, a reason for the defense to not win for the Patriots, it's probably because they got a lot of penalties called against them today. So they were extremely, extremely physical. Northern Pride, what's the difference between today's joint practice and tomorrow's? That's probably that they're going to run some more situations that are different. And the red zone stuff is probably the biggest difference. I'd like to also see more of the kick returning and punt returning. Probably that. Steve says, any update on how many UDFAs you think could make the 53? Well, right now, I think that probably I've got Brosmer making it. So Brosmer, Zamiah Vaughn, it's possible with Silas Bolden as the punt returner. And after that, Xavier Scott was not this year, but Xavier Scott is still in the mix. I did see a lot of Ty Chandler today. I don't think that is resolved just yet with Xavier Scott and Ty Chandler. They do like Xavier Scott quite a bit, so it might end up resolving itself if he continues to play as well as he did in the preseason. He was a UDFA technically last year with the Colts, but kind of in that same ballpark of someone who's never played before. I don't know if there's any other ones that will make it, but Vaughn and Brosmer I've got on the team at the moment. Let's see. Justin says, have you or others discovered our next Theo Jackson on the field, the consistent playmaker? Like the next, like the under the radar type of guy that could be somebody. Yeah, I mean, I know I keep going back to Vaughn, but I think that Vaughn is probably that guy who nobody's talking about. And then all of a sudden, like, whoa. The other one is probably Gabe Murphy. Gabe Murphy was talked about last year a little bit and then got hurt. And he's come back looking really good, as you guys saw in the preseason game. The dude asks if Xavier Scott is making the team. I mean, right now, if I'm doing 53, I probably put him on the team over Ty Chandler. Yeah. Son of Beavers, who's looking good for tight end 3 so far? Unfortunately, nobody really. I think Ben Urasek has, at this moment, been the better of the tight ends. But if I had to guess, I might say that they still go outside the building and look for cut down guys, a veteran that could come in. They did sign a veteran who's made some catches before. I don't know if he's going to have a real chance or not. I think Urasek has been the best, but tight end 3 might not be here. And I don't know. Is anybody tracking Johnny Munt's training camp? Fanny. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I hope it is, because you said that you loved the article from Kurt Warner. Really appreciate that. Make sure y'all go check it out. purpleinsider.football. This one is open for everybody to read. So just go to purpleinsider.football, give that a read, and decide whether you would like to be a subscriber or not. But I would be honored if you did. And I had a long conversation with Kurt Warner. And I mean, we were on the phone for like an hour and he FaceTimed me and he showed me how to throw an accurate football of layering the football on his FaceTime. It was very cool. And Kurt was just so great about it. He shared the article on Twitter as well. So I can't thank him enough for that piece. So if you get a chance, again, purpleinsider.football, go check it out. I know I ask a lot of you guys. I ask you to do the FanDuel questions. I ask you to read the newsletter, like and subscribe, all that sort of stuff. Dayton says we do big nickel with Metellus inside a lot, so that's what I expect the most. I agree. I think what they want to do more than anything is probably that they want to have Metellus as still kind of the nickel and Theo Jackson back there. But, the way that they've also talked is if they like what Jeff Okuda's brought to the table. And I know that is such a classic. I saw like Sam Monson was making fun of it on Twitter. And you guys know he's, a big guest on this show. And I love their podcast, Check the Mic. But he was making fun of oh, look, we've reached the point of the offseason where people are saying Jeff Okuda's going to work out. And I'm like, maybe it will though, Sam. Maybe it will. Because Shaq Griffin worked out and Stephon Gilmore worked out last year. And I don't know. I mean, nobody wanted those guys. And Okuda, he's got to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing. And they have to be able to use him in spots where he's using his physicality and he's not too often on a one-on-one island with wide receivers where I think that he's not quite quick enough and he can also get grabby. Where more it's like cover 2 stuff where he's got to be physical at the line of scrimmage, but then just kind of owns his area and then tackles. When you see this guy tackle, I mean, because I've gone back and just looked at a little like, hey, did he ever look good? That kind of thing. One thing stuck out to me is the dude can tackle. So maybe that's what they're looking for from that role. But I think that the person earlier who said that they're concerned about that, like I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't be. It just seems like they are kind of excited about him and the way that he's played so far. And I thought at some point we would get Mekhi Blackman's taken over that job. Like that's a Jawan Williams situation, but we haven't even come close to that so far. Son of Beavers, do you still think we go and try to find a QB2? And the way I feel about Sam Howell right now is going into that first preseason game, he needed that bad, like real bad. I thought that Kevin O'Connell's comments were pretty reflective of that, of like, yeah, it looked like he's more of a gamer than anything. So it felt like he really needed to have a good game to kind of like calm it down a little bit and a good joint practice. Today, I would not say he was great. I would say he was competent. And then at the end had some inaccurate throws that cost them in the 2-minute drill, which they would not be very happy about. It's not decided yet. That's my opinion. It's not decided yet with Sam Howell. But when you look around the league, do you see a lot of backup quarterbacks that they could trade for? Do you see a lot of people available where you'd go, oh, yeah, he's going to be way better than Howell? No. So as of right now, I'm saying no, that they don't need to go out and get somebody else. That Sam Howell, they're just going to have to kind of live with that. That's where I'm at. You'd like to see it be better, but if the way he's played in the preseason and maybe the last few practices, that's looked like backup caliber performance to me. Tom says, do you think McCarthy processes faster than Darnold? I don't think there's any debate about it. I think that those two would probably even say that he does. That McCarthy, it's one of his best traits. His mind works fast. He makes fast decisions. He gets the football out of his hands. And this is why when I keep coming back to, well, how did he look? How did he look? If it's a day like today and the pressure's coming and he makes a decision to scramble, right? If he makes a decision to scramble and he's got a first down in a 2-minute drill, that's great. Like, make that decision fast. And he's getting the ball out of his hands. He's completing passes over the middle. He seems to be seeing the receivers. Like even an example was, when they play in the preseason game and he misses that one throw and he's talking about, after the game, well, if I did this, it would have been a little better, but he threw it to the right guy. Like, again, right decisions over and over again are what wins at the quarterback position. And I think with Darnold, what I think with Darnold was that he would just hold on to the ball too long. And I didn't think he was great at seeing things quickly, but I also think one of his issues was he would just hang on to a read all the way across the field. And sometimes that was phenomenal because he would hit an incredible pass. And sometimes that resulted in a sack. And I don't see JJ McCarthy doing that as much. I see him identifying stuff a little faster, and I see him getting rid of the football pretty well. The Meticular says Colin Cowherd has a secret source telling him that JJ has confidence issues. It's really funny about like, why in the world would I care what Colin Cowherd's saying about JJ McCarthy? Why in the world would any of my audience care about what Colin Cowherd's saying about JJ McCarthy or any Vikings fans? You have a dozen reporters who are right here at every single practice, and we know every single dang person in the organization. Talk to the coaches, the players, the teammates, JJ himself, watch every single practice, but some guy who's got a TV show is definitely more reliable. I mean, I've heard way too dang much of that guy's name from Vikings fans. Doesn't make any sense to me. Doesn't make any sense. Why is it even being brought up? Why are you letting him bother you? I think confidence is not the issue. I've told you what I think the issues could be. I think it's consistency of accuracy. I think that's because if he throws a pass like he did today, you're driving against the Bears, you go 6 for 6, and then you just miss completely because your accuracy fails you, and you throw an interception, it's going to cost you a drive. That's been the biggest concern of mine. It's not so bad that I think it can't be resolved or that I think they can't overcome it. But if there's one thing, it's that it's not confidence. I mean, nobody has ever said confidence in JJ McCarthy is a problem. I've never heard that from anybody. But look, it's a secret source, so it must be true. He's also been doing that bit for like 20 years, guys. JJ also wears his hat backwards. That's another Cowherd bit. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care at all what somebody who's never been to a practice says about JJ McCarthy. Tell him to stop by. We can have a conversation about it. Otherwise, I just don't even bring it up. Like, I just don't understand why you let someone troll you like that. The guy's he's been brilliant at trolling people for 20 years. It's what he does. Maybe his next segment after his secret source will be about LeBron, probably. So maybe you can wait around for that one. For Vikings, though, I'll take that. I'll take the JJ McCarthy questions. Steven says, leader in the clubhouse for Mr. Mankato. So this is complicated. Steven, because by definition, I need to know whether Lucky Jackson or Xavier Scott can get it. I think they can, because Lucky Jackson has been on the practice squad for 2 years. I don't believe he's ever played in a game. And then when you're talking about Xavier Scott, he played for another team and then came to this practice squad. But I think he qualifies. So I think it would be one of those two guys. Right now. And then if Scott has this amazing preseason, he makes the team, he was more likely to be cut than Lucky Jackson. I think from the outset, we always knew that Lucky had a chance to make the team. So I would go with one of those two guys right now. And then if those are disqualified because it's not their first year, I think they qualify personally. But if they don't, then I would probably go with Zamiah Vaughn as of this moment. But I think that Mr. Mankato was made for guys like Xavier Scott and Lucky Jackson, who you never thought in a million years going into camp that you'd be having a lot of conversation about, and then you did. Xavier Scott, for sure, I did not think we would be talking about coming out of minicamp. Like, hey, can this guy actually win? Like, I would have said no. Like, I don't think so. And now he could. He could. AH says, thoughts on signing Odell Beckham. I get where it comes from. There's probably a relationship there. The Vikings have had chances to get Odell Beckham before, I'm sure, and they didn't do it. So I don't know if they would want to do that right now. Does Odell Beckham know the defense, or I'm sorry, the offense? Does he know the system? Is it similar to the Rams? Could he pick it up right away? And what has he got left? I mean, that's the other thing that you got to be asking is like, what has Odell Beckham got left? When we talk about any of these guys, Tyler Boyd, Adam Thielen, Odell Beckham, my question is always, are they like good enough right now? Because I don't know if they actually are. It sounds like Odell Beckham wants to come back and play, but it just feels like a like Jerry Rice or Chris Carter or Andre Reed, like the legends who kept playing and joined other teams and then just couldn't really make much of an impact. I'm not sure that the juice is worth the squeeze there with Odell Beckham, but you know who can make sure that Odell Beckham doesn't show up here is the other wide receivers on the Vikings roster who they feel pretty good about. And remember, they won games with Trent Sherfield and Brandon Powell filling in last year. That's not a big jump to Lucky Jackson and to Ty Felton, I think. Wayne is given a 10 out of 10 for Big Leg Bill, Will Reichert, our FanDuel question of the day. 1 out of 10, your confidence in the kicker. I'm shocked by you guys. I would have thought you would have said 2 out of 10. I'll never trust the kicker. That's what I would have expected. Jared, there's always a chance, but I don't think Okudah would still be getting these chances if he wasn't such a high draft pick. I mean, that's always the conversation, right? That's always the conversation is like, would he actually be getting this shot based on his performance if he wasn't a top draft pick? But then I'm sure what they would say is, well, no, but his talent is kind of important in this conversation. Like he is talented and you could see the talent. I mean, there's just not corners who are that big that move like that. Xavier Rhodes was. There's not that many. So if they have a specific idea of what he can do, then maybe it can work. But here's what I'm thinking though. Like, think about this. If he ends up with something like a 65 PFF grade and he's above average in tackling and he gives up a couple of plays over a year and plays 450 snaps, was it worth the $1 million or whatever 1 year, $2 million contract? Like, yeah, sure it was. I mean, you can't be perfect at every single position. And if it doesn't work, they do have the fallback of Mekhi Blackman. Aaron says, is Joe Huber another UDFA that could make the 53? See, that's a hard one to make work because with the offensive line, you're going to have more likely than not Justin School, Blake Brandel, Walter Rouse, and Michael Juergens. That makes 9 offensive linemen. Can you fit 10? Or are you cutting one of those guys? I mean, I know that Juergens hasn't been very exciting so far in training camp, and he was okay in the preseason game, but he knows the entire offense at center. You kind of have to keep him. Rouse, I think, has really come along. After a slow start to training camp, I think Rouse has come along and has looked quite good over the last, played really well in the game. And then today, I thought he had a good day out there blocking a right tackle. I have a good view of the right tackle. So I see a lot of Brian O'Neill, saw a lot of Walter Rouse today. I just, you're not cutting Brandel. Are you cutting School potentially? Because Brandel can play tackle and then putting Huber. That's possible. That is possible. But I also think they like having that veteran who could play a week or two if Darrisaw isn't ready. Steven says there's a bit of concern in Vikings fanland on Dallas Turner. He didn't get many reps against Houston, but we didn't see much, and Gabe Murphy played well. Yeah, I talked about that a little earlier, Steven, and is this just like camp boredom? Is this camp boredom? Because Dallas Turner's had a really good camp so far, and now it's just time to see him play. But I don't know how many years I've been doing this where I come in and tell everybody the preseason for starters means absolutely nothing. And I remember talking to O'Connell somewhere, just chatting about the preseason and saying, like, thank you for just taking the starters completely off the field, because I got so tired of that. Hey, this guy didn't look good in his one preseason game as a starter or whatever under Mike Zimmer. Is he a bust now? And it's like, guys, they're not doing anything. They're not game planning. And look, Gabe Murphy did great, but he did great against the third team of the Houston Texans. Like their fourth team quarterback had no idea where he was. He was just throwing the ball over the place. like, not taking away from Gabe Murphy's had a really good camp. I like Gabe a lot, but those 9 snaps, wow. There seems to be some folks who just want this to happen almost, it feels like. They didn't go out and get anybody else, and Dallas Turner's playing a ton of snaps, and he's done really well in training camp practice. That's all I can tell you. Son of Beavers wants Gilmore back. Gilmore last year, I thought at the beginning of the season was quite good, but then it faded after a while into the season. And I don't know where he's at as far as, you're talking about somebody who's been in the league a really long time. Does he have any burst left? At least where you're at with Okudah is in really good physical shape. He looks extremely strong. He looks like he is playing very physical, motivated, like all that stuff. And if he turns out to be a fit, then he turns out to be a fit. I think that as of right now, they feel like he is. But if he's not, then they're probably going to look at just playing Mekhi Blackmon. I just want to see more out of Mekhi Blackmon because I didn't love what I saw in the preseason game. I haven't loved what I've seen in camp. I want to see the aggressive Mekhi Blackmon that I saw 2 years ago. Asa, friend of the show, hope you're doing well, Asa, says Darnold's pressure to sack ratio was bad for his entire career, really showed itself in the playoffs. Pressure to sack is a sticky stat, and JJ was great at that in college. Yeah, I think with JJ, that was a main reason that he was drafted, is that his pocket presence, his natural pocket processing, getting the football out, making decisions was really good. It was a main reason, is just how his mind worked. And Darnold was always a guy that just hung in and took a lot of sacks. Always taking a lot of sacks. So I think that there's a pretty significant difference. So yeah, D Pratt with the defense, the defensive line, from my understanding, was really great. But the reality is, look, when you're talking about what I'm going to watch in a joint practice, I have a very, very good feeling about the defense. Like, I've seen them a ton. I saw them last year. I know who they are. I know the coach. I know everything I need to know about the defense. I know we want to talk about, like, was it Drake May or JJ McCarthy who was better? But I feel like I already know confidently what that defense is. I would have liked to seen some of the second team guys, but I'm going to watch McCarthy. And I think by tomorrow, I'll have a better feel on the defense. We'll see a lot of the drills where it's just, one group on the field, and we get to see the Vikings defense a little bit more than we did today. More situational stuff tomorrow. I think there was only really one situational period today. There's going to be a lot tomorrow, according to Vrabel. So I'll get a better feeling. But last year, so the thing is, last year in Cleveland, there was a place where I could stand, where I could see both at the same time. So I'd look over here and I'd watch a defensive rep. I'd look over here and I'd watch an offensive rep. The way it works now, they're on these two fields where I'm much closer to the offense. But, the defense has just been so good. Not too concerned about the way it worked there. So, well, 2 hours in to the show, guys, there had to be a rant. But I feel like it's just remarkable how many times that I get questions about the same guy who just, he picks whether he wants to support somebody or not, and then he rides that all the way to the end. I could certainly do that. I could, anybody could do that. I think it's a lot harder to go to practice every single day and talk to 50 people about a quarterback than it is to just sort of go to your studio and decide you don't like a guy and then say you don't like him a bunch of times. But that's just me. He makes more money than me. So there you go. Carter says Brandon Powell has always been solid. Yeah, I think that they really didn't like how he played last year. I think that he didn't have the same explosiveness as he did 2 years ago. And, I think they want to give these guys a chance first. Like, you can sign Brandon Powell at any time. I'm sure Brandon is working out. I'm sure he's ready to go. You can sign him anytime you want. But with, someone like Silas Bolden, like, let's see first. And I think that's what, O'Connell's point today was I know he hasn't done much, but we think he's talented. And he is. You watch him return for a touchdown at Texas. I mean, he is talented. He is quick. I've liked what I've seen from Miles Price too. They got to catch the ball in preseason. They got to show they can do it. But I think there's a real chance they just stick with those guys. And the same with the way Lucky Jackson has played. I think they've been very happy with that. And now they're mixing in Jayshon Jones. So they want to see it first and then decide whether they want to go get somebody else. Kurt is at an 8 out of 10 for our FanDuel question of the day about confidence in Will Reichert. That's kind of where I'm at, Kurt. The one concern would be the injury from last year. It's not something you want to see as a guy try to kick through an injury and then miss some kicks and maybe try to come back a little too early. Don't really want to see that from him, but his actual talent, he kicked a 50-yarder today that was good by 65. I mean, his actual talent is pretty freakish. So I would go an 8 as well. You can never go 10 on a kicker. No kicker you could ever go 10 on. Not Morton Anderson in his prime. Steve says, Tim Jones made a couple of 40-plus yard plays last few practices. He might be in the mix for wide receiver 5 with Addison not counting toward the 53-man. Yeah, I'm not sure on Jones. Like, it certainly helps. He's also done it against, he did actually beat Isaiah Rodgers in practice the one day. So he's needed some of those catches. Didn't love that he had penalties the other day on special teams, but he has been a proven special teamer in his career. And that with Rondale out, that is very possible that you end up with Tim Jones on the roster, because I haven't really figured out like who's the special teams guys. Tavier Thomas, is it him? Is it Khalif Halassi? Like I'm not sure yet. There's some roster spots in the back end. I was going to make a 53 after the joint practices and then the next preseason game, but there's some spots that I'm not really so sure about right now. Let's see. Preston says, any worries teams will screen the Vikings to death due to our front 7 speed? I don't know that there's a whole lot that teams can do against the Vikings defense that's going to be great for them. Like, yeah, they're fat. I mean, I don't know how speed, I guess I see what you're saying. Like if they're getting upfield fast, then they're screening behind them. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's possible. But they also have great tacklers at the linebacker position. We should mention, and I did a little bit last night, but with Brian Asamoah being cut, I think it says a lot about Kobe King and where they're at with Kobe King as somebody who can step in if they need him to, but be a special team kind of stalwart and that kind of thing. Like he's had a really good training camp for a late round draft pick. For them to say right now, we're good with Kobe King at linebacker behind Eric Wilson, we're going to just move on for Brian Asamoah. I do think it matters. Asa says, did the Patriots throw exotic looks at JJ similar to how B-Flow would do? What's the typical approach when it comes to the practices? They threw a lot of blitzes at him. Yeah, I mean, nobody does stuff like Brian Flores. Like Flores is a crazy person. And I mean that in the biggest, most complimentary way, but he's a lunatic when it comes to, you're going to line up here, you're going to drop back, you're going to be in this gap and then move all the way back there once the quarterback turns around. Like when JJ's running play action, he might turn around and be like, well, how did that guy get all the way across the other side of the field? Because they just throw so many things in there. It wasn't like that, but some of the blitzes got home. And I don't think that the D coordinators throw everything at them, but I think they throw a lot in these joint practices. I really do. And I know that, it's probably not everything because there's still fans in the stands and so forth. And, the Bears might have somebody in the stands wearing a Thielen jersey or whatever, but they're not totally game planning against each other. They're not showing every wrinkle, but they are running real stuff at this point. This is beyond the point of, hey, we're just putting in our base. We're just running some practice. Like they're like getting there in camp where you're getting into game mode. Hamza says, based on what you have seen up to this point in OTAs from the Vikings, do you think they could be a top 10 scoring offense with JJ in his first season? I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say that for sure. They were a top 10 offense with Kirk. They were a top 10 offense with Darnold. They've improved the running game a lot. Sometimes when it comes to scoring totals, you are talking about how the game plays out. So just, for example, if you beat the Chicago Bears, let's say you get up 14-3 on the Bears, and then they just kind of lock it down, right? Caleb's struggling and they're playing great defense, and they end up winning the game 17-10 or something. Well, that's not going to look great for your offense point total, but that's probably the way you want to play this year with the way things are with McCarthy. But can they? I mean, of course they can. Yeah, I mean, this offense, we can't forget that Sam Darnold was a huge bust like before he got to the Vikings. And now he's at the point where he gets a 30 something million dollar contract to go play for Seattle. That's just because of KOC, the offense, and then the confidence that they built with him. I mean, yes, I think that they can be a top 10 offense. If they get in shootouts, they're going to have to be. But I go back to a stat all the time because I'm very curious about this. I'm very curious about this too, just like you guys are, because none of us really knows how it's going to play out. One thing that always sort of amazed me about the 2015 Vikings was that I think they finished like 20th in scoring overall, but they were 7th in the percentage of drives that they scored on because Teddy Bridgewater didn't turn the ball over. They ran it well. And when they got into field goal position, they made sure they got 3, and then they played great defense. And so their total in scoring wasn't that great, but they scored on a lot of drives. They held the ball a lot. Like, are they going to play that way? I don't know if that's KOC's style, but they might play a little bit more that way to start the season. I could definitely see that in the first couple of games. But I don't know. I mean, wouldn't it be just like, Kevin O'Connell to come out in the first game against the Bears and just throw it 40 times just to be like, no one will stop me. No one will stop me from throwing 40 times. I shot you 99. Are the Vikings really going to hold Jefferson back until the week they are practicing for game 1? It's possible. Yep, it's possible. My guess is, based on what I've seen him doing, is that he will probably be out there next week. That would be my guess, is that he's probably back practicing next week. So, Asa says, Tage, referring to Tage Seth, asked what the percentage chance JJ finishes top 12 in EPA per dropback. I'd give it 30%. Love to hear your thoughts. So with this offense, with this setup, with the players that they have around JJ McCarthy and the play action game that Kevin O'Connell has built, I think over the last couple of years, it's been really good. The play action game. You're talking about EPA per play, not total EPA. If you asked him to be top 12 in total EPA, I'd say probably not. But in EPA per dropback, I think so, because I don't think he's going to take a ton of sacks. I think he's going to scramble for first downs. He's going to hit some explosive plays. The one area that I'm a little bit interested in is the red zone, just because, is he going to execute in the red zone, or are they going to really lean much more on somebody like Jordan Mason? I think that they will lean on Jordan Mason, but he's going to complete passes. He's going to move the ball. They're going to throw downfield. And I really think that play action game is something that he's become very good at executing. So right now I'd say fringe. Where that's at, 10 to 12. But per play, this offense might early on remind you of the 2019 Vikings, where they run a lot, they screen. I mean, the screen game, that could be a game changer for JJ McCarthy too, because they have the offensive line to do it. And maybe I'm just overly excited about what I saw today with Donovan Jackson, the screen game. It's like, well, that was pretty serious what they were able to do today with Jackson getting out in space. Not having Addison for the first couple games, it could be a problem, but they've got everybody else. I don't know. Like, I think that's a fair bar to set, is whether it's EPA, it's PFF grade, it's QBR. Like, be between 10th and 14th, and this team is really good. So somebody mentioned earlier, if he's a B or a B plus quarterback, how many games do they win? My answer is that's what I think he'll be, and I think they'll win 11. But would I be shocked if he came out and ran a top 10 offense and looked really good? No. And that's the whole point about like range of outcomes, where I've got my range of outcomes right now. I mean, going into camp, it could be anything. He's never run the first team offense before. Could be anything. I think the range of outcomes I have thrown out the outcomes where he's just awful and can't play. Just thrown that out because he's too in command. The offensive players seem too confident in him. Guys are catching balls all day. Addison and Hawkinson had, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 catches today. You know, the way that that's going, KOC himself, the way he works with quarterbacks, like it's always possible that it all goes to hell, but it seems very unlikely. He's looked like an NFL quality starting quarterback in this camp. Where I can't figure out is the range at the top, because this offense and these receivers have a tendency to push that range as far as it will go. You got the best version. Josh Dobbs was here today. You got the best version you'll ever see of Josh Dobbs for a couple weeks. You got the best version of Nick Mullins you'll ever see for a couple weeks. You got the best version of Kirk Cousins in 2023. You got the best version of Sam Darnold last year, hands down the best version you'll ever see. So if we assume that it's the best version, is that best version good enough to creep toward the top 10, 12? Is it better than that? Is it a little worse than that? Sometimes it depends on who you play and when you play them. None of the defenses that they start out with are very good, so you've got some time there. 17 McMullen says, does it seem like he is at least accurate on deep routes? But the routes that they use the most as an offense, I can look this up. The routes that they use the most as an offense, I think, are intermediate routes. So you're not talking about deep as in 20 plus yards. You're probably talking about deep as in like 10 to 20. That's what I consider. That's what PFF considers intermediate. So I always think in terms of the intermediate route. So let me see last year. And remember, Sam Darnold did not love that all the time. He loved to throw deep. But let me see about intermediate and what their percentage was last year of intermediate routes. So Sam Darnold last year, okay, he was 8th in the NFL in yardage on intermediate routes. And let's see, it made up 23% of his attempts. So that's a pretty good number. And remember, he's a guy that loved to throw downfield. No, actually, the highest percentage for Darnold was between 0 and 9. But I guess that makes sense. Like quicker passes make sense. But when you look at the actual performance, intermediate routes are going to drive your success. I think that's where JJ McCarthy has been mostly good, has been in the intermediate area. Deep shots depend a lot on the wide receiver, a lot on kind of getting lucky. Like remember last year with, somebody like Jalen Naylor and running wide open against the Green Bay Packers. Like Sam Darnold gets credit for that. He could have thrown it anywhere and Jalen Naylor would have caught it. I think where the precision passing comes in is the intermediate. And that's where Kirk was very good. That's where Darnold had a good amount of success last year. And the underneath stuff is often just schemed. So can you scheme the underneath stuff? So, all right. Well, we've kind of reached the bottom of the comment section of at least of questions that I want to answer. I mean, I've answered this. I'm sorry, Crufty. I've answered this one, I feel like a couple times with Max Brosmer, that I think next year he's QB2. And it would take a lot for him to be the next Tony Romo or Kurt Warner. You never know. I don't ever want to count anybody out. He's been very impressive though. Very impressive. So QB2 in the future, probably QB3 this year. I think that's all good. So, as far as, it's funny because, when we're talking about like Drake May, in terms of my priority of watching the practice, Drake May just doesn't really matter a whole heck of a lot. The Vikings don't play him. And I mean, it's more of an intrigue thing. It sounded to me today like it was the Drake May that they've seen a lot in practice, which is a lot of great plays and a lot of bad plays and a lot of times where he would have been sacked because their offensive line's not good. So, no, it's okay. It's okay, Crufty. I'm always okay with, legitimate questions. It's just, I feel like, Max Brosmer has probably reached a little bit as far as like what percentage of the conversation, maybe a little bit much for somebody who I don't expect to play. And I like Max a lot. I mean, I wrote the article about him coming into training camp because I loved how he looked in mini camp. Talked with him after practice today. He's got a really good head on his shoulders. I like what I'm seeing for Max Brosmer, for sure. And I'm very interested to see him play in the next preseason game. So great. Yeah, I know, with the Max Brosmer. So Preston says that Drake May had the better day. No turnovers, 13 for 21, took a bunch of sacks. Well, the better day between Drake May and JJ McCarthy doesn't really matter. I mean, if he took a bunch of sacks, like, that's not good. McCarthy didn't take a bunch of sacks. McCarthy missed a couple passes, but had a great 2-minute drill. So that will probably be what I'm looking at tomorrow. Now I'm hoping to see situationally, usually they're on the same field. So I'm hoping to see that. But, and I know Phil, like, he's a really good reporter. But I think it's really hard at the Vikings facility to watch both at the same time. So I'm going to focus. I know Phil Perry said it. Yeah. I'm going to focus on mostly JJ McCarthy again tomorrow, because that's what you guys want to hear about. And that's what really matters to the Minnesota Vikings. So to put a bow on a very long and very good stream, I would say that this was another box that he checked day one. It was actually better than what we saw last year from Sam Darnold in the first day. Darnold was really good in the second day. We'll see if that's the case for JJ McCarthy as well of joint practices. I will have the show tomorrow and a conversation with Dane Mizutani recapping everything. We'll continue to talk to everybody out there and gather what we can and have a lot of fun with one more day of joint practices. So thanks everybody for jumping in. Again, great stuff. Really appreciate all the great questions. Last one coming in. Will Zamiah Vaughn make the roster? I've got the chances very high that Zamiah Vaughn makes the roster. I think he will. So, Patrick, I agree. Taking a bunch of sacks is not something you just be like, oh, well, he took a bunch of sacks. But other than that, like, that's a big deal. Anyway, no hating on Drake May. Thanks so much, everybody, for all of your time. Great stuff, great questions, great conversation. As always, we will be back here tomorrow night, probably 7:30 Central is what I'm thinking. So take care, everybody. Football.